All right. Good morning, good day, good evening, whatever time zone you're in. It's good to see you. And thank you for joining us again on Nights of the Storm. Today is the 17th of January, 2026. I wrote 2025 on my notes. How about that? First mistake of the year. All right. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today, we're going to have Denver as a guest host. After we get rolling, I'm going to hand it over to him. But first, let's introduce the ladies. Today, joining us, we have the lovely Lady of Liberty and den mother of the Tiger's Den, Miss Karen Carpenter. What's up, Karen?
The Tiger's Den, not the Lion's Den.
I know I messed that one up.
Great to see you today, Jason and Ashley, and wonderful to have Denver with us today. And hello to everybody in the chat. I hope you're hanging in there in these crazy times, and best wishes to everybody listening in the future.
Right on. And now we have the lady who keeps us sane in an insane world, Miss Ashley. Think, Change, Repeat. What's going on?
Hello. Happy to be here with everybody and looking forward to the show today. So hello, Karen, Jason, and Denver, and the chat. Good to see everybody. Right
on. And last but not least, definitely not least, this is our guest host. This is what, second or third time you guest hosted, I think, maybe, Denver. He is our technical expert of the realm, rumored to have invented the trebuchet and the crossbow. What's going on, Denver?
Oh, just another day in paradise, guys. Just looking to really give a little bit more insight into the SPEED Act without getting into too much detail, but to connect some dots between what we see happening around the world with the obvious reliance economically on the investments in AI and the building of data centers and all that as it relates to the SPEED Act. And of course, this is all part of the attempt they are making to build out the digital prison around all of us over these current days. You can't even say in the years to come because it's actually happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get started, though, even before the verse of the week, we do have some announcements, and I'll go first. So Mr. DJ Angry Tiger, that's Franco Mattei. He was a co-founder of this show and frequently joins us and has hosted quite a few times. He is going to be doing potentially a live mix tonight. And if you notice him on, and I'm sure he'll do a Twitter blast and I'll do a Twitter blast. But please come join. And number one, it's fun. And number two, he's trying out some new software to make it a little bit better on the audio quality and streaming. So it'd be nice if we all get in there and give him some feedback. And he probably will do requests because it's live. So come join us tonight if he does that. He said he'll let me know by 2. I will put that out over Twitter. I have a little tag list, so you should get a notification or something. So yeah, there you go. And I know Ashley has something, right, Ashley?
I do have something. So I'm not saying that I'm good at this or have done the best job so far, as my Nights co-host could probably attest to, but I am trying to put together a stream-a-thon for Monday the 19th. So I will put out the definitive schedule once I have that nailed down on my Twitter, and maybe Jason and Karen could share that as well. But I am putting together a stream-a-thon for our friend Doc, and we are trying to raise some funds for him. And because he lives in quite a rural place in the potential 51st state of Canada, and times are tough up there. So we, and Doc is a good friend to us and has been a good friend to me. So we're going to try to get that together. And I have the Knights on board, and I also have the Angry Tiger on board, and several other people. So I'm looking forward to it. And again, I'm going to have the specifics nailed down. But basically, my original idea was to try to do a 24-hour stream. I don't know if that's going to be able to take place, but other than that, a really long stream. So if you have time off on Monday, I would love for you to, to pop in, say hello, and consider a donation to our cause, and it would be greatly appreciated. More details to come.
And if they, I know was it Cash App or something was the preferred, I think. If you do give through us, then I will see that and I will write those numbers down and I will make sure that he gets those funds and it doesn't go to us. So
yes, perfect. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I think we're probably going to be going primarily with PayPal, and it's possible that I'm going to be setting up a GoFundMe so we could have two options there, but I'm not sure how that would work for international banking essentially. So we're going to get that figured out, and we'll have a definitive place that folks can send a little coin if they so choose, and we would really appreciate it.
All right, Karen, you got anything coming up? Want to announce?
Well, I'm waiting for a mic that I ordered that hasn't shipped, and I ordered it January 1st. And then I plan to start a show of my own, either Monday or Tuesday evenings, probably at 5:30, which would overlap with Guard Goldsmith. But there's so many people streaming, and I'm getting to know more and more people who have live streams constantly. So there's really no time that I can find where nobody that we know is streaming. So I think it'll be Monday or Tuesday at 5:30 Pacific, which would be 8:30 Eastern. That's looking that way. Doing our show, which I love doing on Saturday, I don't feel like Sunday is okay for me because I need at least one weekend day to spend with my family. Otherwise, I might do Sunday. So anyway, that's all. That's just something coming up for me possibly. And I'm happy to participate in the live stream that we're doing for Doc on the 19th, Monday. So, and I'm really looking forward to Angry Tiger's mix tonight. We used to love Tiger Tales. It was a big hit. And I might take some requests too sometimes when I do have my own podcast, because I think that we really need to mix it up and do some informational things and some fun things, and just get our minds off of the news stream sometimes. So that's about it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that format because Guard does that. He throws a lot of music in, high energy. He's giving you the bad news, but it's a lot of high energy and the music is great. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. And Tiger Tales was the bomb. That was one of my favorite shows on Free World FM when it was still up and running. Really good stuff. Before we move on, Denver, do you have anything you would like to announce? Oh, you're muted, brother.
I just wanted to say nod to Karen in that, and you got to find the right time. And it makes me think back to the Rockfin days when there were so many content producers with like very good intentions and all that. And it's like everybody was just kind of de facto coordinating to have what was essentially a parallel media before it all became completely, largely mocked as it is today and infiltrated,
That's why I've waited so long. I've thought about starting, doing my own thing for a long time, but I thought there's so many of us doing this. I don't want to compete directly with anybody. And there's just more and more and more, and there's really no good time, but I really would enjoy doing something on my own. I love doing this very, very much, but I would also like to do something on my own. So I'm just going to go for it if my mic comes eventually.
Yeah. And it's like, you can, test the traffic on different days,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's part of why I built the schedule. Initially, the schedule, hey, what's up, Skunk Hollow? Let's see. All right. He says we're good on sound. Yeah. Originally the schedule was meant for me, so I could look at when I could do the Foxhole or Knights of the Storm and, not step on anyone else's toes. So I definitely get the feeling, Karen, the concern about messing up someone else's show or whatever. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the verse of the week if I can find my thing here. Okay, here we go. You guys ready?
As I think about the goodness of Jesus, my soul cries out, hallelujah.
I had to use that. My wife likes Medea, so we used that today. This one comes from Leviticus 19, and it has nothing to do with our show today. This has to do with what's going on in the world, in our nation today. Leviticus 19, for context, and this is going to be verse 18 and 33, but the context of the entire chapter is, this is God telling Moses, like, this is how your people need to live. So it wasn't the 10 commandments, although it fell in line with the 10 commandments. These are some more specific things, right? And I'll go ahead and jump into it. Verse 18 says, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. And I think we need to remember that, because they're trying to drive hatred between us so bad and put us in these little boxes and groups and make us fight against one another. So we have to be aware of that and remember what God told us to love your neighbor as yourself. Tiger preaches on the love thing all the time. Don't let it tear you down. Don't let hatred tear you down and suck you in. Transcend it all. Okay. And then verse 33 says, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. I guess it's 34 as well. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And the reason I bring that up is because all this ICE stuff. We do have people that we did ask to come here. Do we have an immigration problem? Yes, we do. But the problem isn't people coming over here. The problem is the welfare state attracting them to come here. And we did pay for them to come here. We paid to bus them around the nation and put them in certain cities. And should we deport them or not? We can argue that all day. My thing is, how do you treat them? And the way I'm seeing these people being treated is, and you throw these two verses or these two pieces together, right? So treat your neighbor as yourself. People that are American citizens are getting hurt and they're fighting amongst each other over this immigration thing. The immigration thing that's going on right now is being done completely in the wrong way. As David Knight says, the ends don't justify the means, right? So the means need to be different. If we want to deport these people, we need to do it in a civil manner. We need to not fight amongst each other. And I mean, people are dying at this point, and they're talking about flying drones over the U.S. So we're bringing and this kind of, I guess, does tie into the topic of the day, because with the AI and data centers, that's going to be used as the processing center as they're flying these drones around, looking at people, tracking where you're going. I mean, now they have a new system where they can geofence an area and shut off cell phones so you can't live stream what's going on during these riots, protests, whatever you want to call them. So I'll throw it around the table. What's your thoughts on that? We'll start with Karen. What's your thoughts, Karen?
Well, I try to live by the golden rule always. Sometimes it's not so easy, but I really do try to lead with that, with love and with faith that human nature is good, that we're born into the world with love in our hearts, and we don't have hate. We learn to hate or to not trust other people or other races. And so I don't feel like, I don't understand all of this. I feel like it's very short-sighted, and we're programmed this way, and then we're being played by the media and the people that we see, the left and the right. I think we're seeing extremes on both ends, and both ends are, I said the other night, they're batshit crazy. The far left and the far right, they're both batshit crazy. And then they go around and meet each other in back of us and clash. And then we're supposed to believe that these are our neighbors, and that everybody on the left or the right or the side that we theoretically aren't on is crazy, which they aren't. Most people just want to raise their family, make a good living, enjoy their life, relax, travel, help people help each other. We see in disasters that people do help each other more than, quote unquote, those government agencies that are there to help us. It's people who help each other. So I just feel that it's really important that we try to remember that we're being manipulated into these hateful feelings and actions. And just to be mindful of that and to truly look around you when you walk outside. I live in a city adjacent to a huge city, and I don't hear of people being attacked and murdered. And there have been protests here, but they're peaceful. And I know the people at the stores where I go, and there are problems, but it's not nearly as bad as we're supposed to be believing that it is. So don't buy the hype, and relax, breathe, and do the things you enjoy, and try to stay connected with yourself and centered that way with the golden rule.
Excellent. What are your thoughts, Ashley?
Yes. Obviously, I agree with what Karen is saying. And just to add to that, these issues are being weaponized against us. So I believe that the hyperbole is really being exaggerated. I think if you were to have a conversation with someone, there are there's good points to be made on either side. And we did see that. So throughout the COVID years, a lot of conservatives were right about that, and then we had the left that was being very concerned about Ukraine, right? Which we knew that there was a lot more nuance to that situation with the NATO surrounding Russia and why that was taking place, and that the official story was not accurate. Then we go into October the 7th. Then the right becomes activated and becomes very hyperbolic about what is happening in Israel. And they are now believing the mainstream narrative, even though we have been told that the Golden Dome, or the Iron Dome, is essentially impenetrable. But yet people flying kites were able to get through and cause mass terror. So there are things for us to pick apart in the middle. And there are, and so that made the left be at least questioning what was taking place with the Israel-Palestine issue. And I think that it is going back and forth like a pinball, essentially, and that we are aware of that here in a lot of cases, but there's both sides to be made. There is common ground to be found. And as Karen was saying, the manipulation is absolutely huge because people get caught up in their side. And we know that we, each other, are not the enemies. And as Karen was saying, she lives next to a big city. She has not seen the stuff that gets promoted and advertised on X. Those things are there for a reason. We are being shown what they want to show you in order to elicit a reaction. They want the online fighting. They want people to believe that what you're seeing on X or Twitter or whatever is real. And so for us to have these discussions, I think is very healthy because we may not all agree on everything, but we're willing to have discussions about it. And in my neighborhood, I'm sure that there's a huge mix of political opinions. But when I am going, my neighborhood book club, guess what? Nobody's talking about politics. People are enjoying a meal and we're talking about a book. And it's time with other people. It is fellowship, and we need that in our lives. And the other point that Karen made is that in disasters. So my friend Terry from the Union of the Unknowns, he survived a volcano. Actually, he got the nickname from our buddy Keel, the Volcano Buster. So many people could never imagine what it would be like to have to live through a volcano, evacuate your home. Yes, we are familiar with natural disasters, very familiar here in the States. And yes, some people have lived through a volcano, but it's very rare. And they almost lost their home, and they have dealt with the issue of, would it have been better? Because of the cleanup, because of the building afterward, all of these things, and the potential land grabs and the mismanagement by the ruling class. But like what Karen was talking about, it is your neighbors that are going to help you. It's people in your state, in your area, in your community that are going to help you. And they don't care what your politics are. During Helene, when Western North Carolina and East Tennessee were decimated, people, regular people that are struggling on their own, they are the ones that sent millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of supplies to the people. And we didn't care that you're lefties in Asheville or that you're conservatives in the mountains. People didn't care. So there is a lot more humanity left. And I always say this, and I feel really strongly about it, that is the piece that the predator class does not understand. That is the human spirit. And yes, we are manipulated and we have been brainwashed, and the mass exportation of MK Ultra for many decades now. But that is the piece that they do not understand. And that is what binds us. And again, we are not each other's enemy. So not that I'm perfect at not holding grudges. I can hold a grudge. I have some old grudges, really old at this point. But I think it's a very good message. And I think that when we get to the point of me not being so upset about these issues of whatever I was getting riled up about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, I have peace. And that means something to me. And I have conversations with people, and I can build a relationship with somebody. I can have a good conversation that means something to me, because I'm not holding against them like, oh, you support X, Y, and Z. Well, we can't be friends. So if I do that and I hold that against them, then I'm limiting my life. And I have had amazing conversations with people all over the map, and that matters to me. And I think that that we can do that. And I know a lot of people here already know that. So I don't want to be preaching to the choir, but I feel hopeful in that. And I think it's a really good message.
Let me add a little bit there. Great points there, Ashley. I try to tell my daughter, she's from her dad's family. They burn bridges. They hold grudges and they burn bridges. And I tried to raise her to understand that one of the saddest things you can do is end your life not speaking with, for example, a brother, sister, cousin, father, and you don't remember why. Keep the dialogue open. Don't burn those bridges. To me, that's so important. And I can make friends with just about anybody. I feel like most of us have a lot more in common than we do as far as different. And also with us, most of us realize that these differences are being artificially stoked. I want to read a comment real quick. Handy says the city of Alpharetta police have a trailer they park at the Encore Amphitheater during concerts. It intercepts cell phone texts and calls without public knowing. Stow that away, Denver. Over to you.
Yeah, I think that's Alpharetta, Georgia. That's
Alpharetta, okay.
Yeah, that's my neck of the woods. But yeah, all great points all around. It's important to think about the sequencing of events that have brought us to where we are right now, culturally, the role that technology plays mediating reality in all of our lives, as a substitute for being out talking to people, whatever else. The point I'm driving at is, when you're seeing things over a screen, you're seeing somebody else's viewpoint. You're seeing what the literal definition of a vicarious reality is. You take that principle with the idea of neuro-linguistic programming, with the idea of data center tight algorithmic targeting, and the Cambridge analytic idea of them having thousands of variables on every single person. I mean, I don't think it takes people being taken to a back room and their eyelids glued open and shown the imagery like in A Clockwork Orange. That's not how it happens in most cases. I really think that the level of neuro-linguistic programming and the ancillary systems that support it, maintain people's viewpoint and stuff like that, are really a major cause in the division that we see today, because they literally just program it into an algorithm and they're like, all right, let's watch Moses part the Red Sea, I mean, because, and you go out, as you mentioned, in reality, you go out, you're not seeing the level of division that is projected over the vicarious realities of the internet and social media. And one more point, or a couple more points. First, I want to say shout out to Tiger and his guest that he had on Thursday, because I feel like that's directly relevant to the discussion and some of the info that I'm going to share today. And the alignment of the idea of a Eurasian supercontinent and America's supercontinent and all that. That's an idea that you've seen given life through the various multilateral trade organizations that align with East and West, and with considerable overlap between both, you know? So I think one thing that's easy to miss is that there is so much considerable overlap between these ancillary systems like multilateral trade organizations that, you know, 9 out of 10 people or less walking around, just that's not something that's even in their field of view, you know, and the details of it even less, you know. So yeah, what I see, and it's my longest running hypothetical, which I don't necessarily believe in 100%, but I'm saying from what I observe, it has considerable more merit than you know what we're being told by the government, is that there is high level agreement between the supercontinent nations of the world to use the strategy of tension between the two of them to increase the budgeting towards the priorities each of them have domestically as it relates to building out the security state.
You know, Denver, you make a couple great points. I'd like to just touch back on them. Are these acts of violence happening on both sides between ICE and protesters? Yes, they are. Are they happening at the scale that we see them? I don't believe so. You know, Billy Ray, shout out to Billy Ray, America Unplugged, Guerrilla Underground. Check him out Sunday night, Guerrilla Underground. We got him on our schedule, so go check it out. Billy Ray sent me some videos because we thought New York is crumbling and falling apart and people are shooting heroin in the streets everywhere. And, you know, but he literally went out during this time when New York was supposedly crumbling, and he's standing in line at a pizza joint or something like that. And there's people out everywhere standing there socializing. It's not what we see, but so the question I have is this stuff happening because it's organic, or is it happening because people are fed this? And you made a very excellent point about the algorithms with these data centers. And we're going to touch on this today. I'm sure we're going to get into it. They have consolidated all of our data and built profiles on us. So they know who to target to radicalize. Yeah. And they could feed that into your social media feed, and your perception, your lens makes it look like it's all out war in the streets, and you need to do something about it. So this is like an MK Ultra type thing, but they're not necessarily having to even put drugs or anything. They just profile you and say, this person's susceptible to reacting this way, like a Pavlovian response.
Yeah.
Feeding them this and feeding them this and feeding them this. And then they're going to get all this anger. And that's where I guess this does relate to the verse of the week. If you learn to love your neighbor as yourself and you don't have any hatred towards people, you won't be succumbed to that training, because you're being fed it. I mean, I get fed stuff on my feed all the time that I don't even want to see. It's like they're trying to push me to do something. You know, in my case, it's going to be far right stuff because I'm tagged as a far right guy, even though I'm not. I'm pretty much center. Yeah. But you know, the topics we cover, maybe I got tagged early on, but yeah, that's very relevant with AI and data centers. You know, I was going to talk about this a little bit. No matter what you do, it's going to one of the big 3 or 4. So you see a data center out there and it has a certain name on it, go look it up. It's a subsidiary of Amazon or of Microsoft. And so they have all these different angles of data now stored in one place where they can, they don't need to get a warrant to go get your information. They house it.
Yeah. And also like one of those Amazon competitors, you know, to balance the market out there, Shopify, it's run on Amazon servers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I wanted to talk about that, but That's all I got. I just wanted to, dovetail what you said. That's very, very important with the data they collect and the targeting of people for mind control purposes.
Well, and I just want to also shout out. I said I wanted to shout out two people. One was Tiger for that, and his guest for that show on Thursday, which I just found incredibly insightful.
Leo Zagami.
Yeah, he's had him on before, and I expect to see Leo on more in the future. So I know he enjoys going on Tiger's show.
But the other person I wanted to shout out is Brad Binkley, because of the work he's been doing at looking how back in the 2000s, when Bush was still in the presidency, the Quantico School of Advanced Warfighting and all this, they were looking at mimetic warfare, right? And the show he did in either Thursday or Wednesday, the level of detail and scientific and engineering and mathematical foundations and social theory and psychological theory of what is employed in these meme campaigns is pretty astounding, really. One of the main guys that they're borrowing the theories of is a person named Claude Shannon, who was one of the two people who developed the modern communications model, the Shannon-Weaver communications model, where, just to simplify it, in every single conversation, you've got a sender of a message and a receiver of a message. And in between them, you have noise, right? Well, they've taken that premise and they've expounded it into particularly that noise variable into so many different directions. But the amount of funding and involvement in seeding the meme wars is actually rather well documented. And if you take just a quick case study of what we just witnessed with ICE and the woman getting shot in the face, if you go onto Twitter or went onto Twitter as all of that stuff was happening, I'd be seeing, it's like the typical meme imagery, but all casting Renee Good as somehow in the wrong. And it seemed a premeditated, pre-designed kind of, or just using those long established, familiar meme images and all that. Because what's ultimately happened is it's managed to polarize things all the more and calcify people's heuristics and rules of thumb, without them actually, doing any critical analysis.
And if I could just jump in on that, Denver, I was watching that show as well, that Brad did. And yes, the science of mimetic warfare. And to me, it is another paver in the brick road of behavioral and mind control. So they are building out what they already knew, which we know is a great deal of human behavior that they had studied and learning to control the human. So then this is a furtherance of their studies, in my opinion, in the digital age, because that was something that obviously was new. We did not have the situation that we have now with the easy access to the internet in the way that we did when we know that the original MK Ultra work or the human behavior studies was being done, and but has been building to what we see today. And Ronnie Omelets in the chat mentioned the movie Eddington, which is an A24 film, and it is very much showing an example of how you can just have people with these slight disagreements, and then all of a sudden these differences are being absolutely compounded on until you have chaos. And that's exactly what you see. And you could take that and apply it to the internet, but then people believe that that is real life. And so the amount of study that has been done with memes and and like what Denver was talking about, the neuro linguistic programming, implanting these ideas and making these really quick, short, easy associations and neural pathways for us to make a very quick decision. And that is part of removing the critical thinking element of our day-to-day as well. Go ahead, Denver. Sorry.
Yeah, just great summation there. But yeah, just to let's look at how we got to where we are. So starting at Web 2.0, and the effect of Web 2.0 was, of course, to categorize everybody by and large, reinforcing whatever their web behavior and tastes were, to put it simply. So, they spend a decade plus essentially guiding everybody into an echo chamber. Then you have COVID introduced, and they atomize society, and most people lose a large swath of their social networking outside of the screen and the vicarious realities, right? So now we're at a point where what's presented is, that much stronger of an impression because people have less real social livelihood, right?
Well, it becomes your reality, what you see on Twitter.
Yeah. The vicarious reality is the ploy to replace actual reality. And that's what Twitter's role is. That's what a lot of social media's role is. It's just to fucking put the one or two, ideal pathways of what the government would like people to lock in on,
It almost seems like it was a plan. Go ahead, Karen. Sorry.
Well, it's what Greg Reese in his latest video with the binary choice.
I have that video to play.
Yeah.
I'll do that later. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm seeing, and I talked to my mother about this, who's more aware than I ever thought she would be at 87. We were talking about the shooting or the ICE incident in Minnesota, and it looks like I've got something on my face. Anyway, she said we were talking about how there are two realities, and it depends on which channels you watch, which reality you're going to have. And I've even seen people who are podcasters that we're all familiar with on their shows with multiple people having opposite views. One saying that she was plowed over by the car, and the other podcaster saying that she just barely got touched or didn't get touched at all by the car. And I was talking to my mom about this as well, that it depends which algorithm that you are siloed into, which narrative you're going to get about this ICE incident. And that's how we get the two sides going at each other, because we believe through all of the mind control measures, Operation Mockingbird, in so many ways, that we believe that we know the true story of what went on, and who are we trusting? Were we there? And even if we do see it with our own eyes these days, we could even question that because of the use of crisis actors, paid instigators, agents provocateur, holograms, even what we see with our own eyes, Operation Bluebeam. We may not even be able to trust at some point, but definitely we're seeing what the algorithm is siloing us into seeing, and then we take that at face value, and we believe that we know what we're talking about, and we think that other people are crazy. And we saw this with COVID also. Are you going to take the countermeasure, or are you not going to take it? And people were convinced either way. And so it's a very artificial division that we see, and it's extreme at this point.
And all the more extreme because people lost their, what social graces they had pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
And, kept at home during quarantines for, little to no reason, for, manufactured reasons, essentially. And you know, that's part of what enabled where we are today. That's, you know, that's a prerequisite, really.
And if I could chime in on that, like what you were saying, that two people can see the exact same thing and disagree on what it is, that has absolutely been cultivated. And that is a very good way to put it. And this is something that I was talking about last week, that it is the blue and black, white and gold dress. That is what it is. Maybe that was even a test. Who knows? But that is what that was, for people to look at the exact same image or video or whatever it is and disagree with what they see in front of their eyes. It's pretty brilliant.
It's the subjective nature of consciousness, you know. And you know, to use the Richard Feynman definition, how he explains time. You know, time is a subjective viewpoint. Like some people can automatically count in their head without consciously having to do it and devote space to it, right? Other people actually have to devote like the mental capacity to sitting and count as they're, you know, whatever, doing the laundry, whatever else, jumping hopscotch, whatever. But all in all, it's a human means of measuring the passage of events and sequence of events, and how each of us experience time is subjective as well. How we view time is subjective as well. So it's just you know, everything, there's a lot of subjectivity to a lot of everything, but I think a lot of people also think they have the truth and they came up with it on themselves, and they're just simply repeating a received opinion that, you know, they either don't admit as a received opinion or don't understand as a received opinion. Or
let me one more thing, and then I'll let you handle things. As I was a teacher, and of course took a lot of courses to be certified as a teacher, and I realized that a lot of that was propaganda, of course. But I was talking to Franco about this the other day, how when we have a conversation with somebody, in our own minds, we may have completely different background information on a topic. So that we think these two people think they're talking about the same topic, when in reality, their background information and the topic that they see that they are discussing or feel they're discussing is a completely different set of facts and impressions and observations. So really, we aren't even talking about the same issues at times when we think we are. But what I pointed out to Franco was that in teacher language, that's called scaffolding. The education system builds the scaffolds, just like in construction, you build the basic framework, and then you're supposed to do that, and then hang the information or the facts or knowledge impressions on the scaffolding that you build in the student's mind. And of course, we know with the education system that we have, that scaffolding is very manipulated by design. But so each person has a different scaffolding in their mind, and then they've hung different information, you know, as they built their house of knowledge and opinions and impressions. And so we have people who we think we're having an equal discussion with, or on equal footing, when we don't even have the same background information and basic assumptions at this point. And it seems to be getting more and more extreme.
It's like fluid definitions. It's like, yeah, you know, words, to go back to that Shannon Weaver communications model. Like the primary premise, one of them is that words themselves are only symbols, right? And the goal of the sender of a message is for the intended message to be received as the message was sent and interpreted, you know, 100% as the sender intended. So people often don't even have the same definitions for words, you know, and institutions exploit that a lot. But you know, it's so that explains why when you're talking to, you know, group A or group B, you know, you got to speak to your certain audience, use their language, stuff like that. So there's more common ground and more more taken from the language that you're using. You don't want to like talk rocket science to like a PT, a teacher parent organization, you know.
And just to add to that, too, I think it in these political terms, or like what Karen was talking about, that's a really good, interesting insight from your teaching perspective. And just these basic, like when you're out in, let's say, the corporate world, you are exposed to all of these different little continuing ed type things. And sometimes it's communication based, right? And we're told that communication, because these issues are, even if it's dealing with something not political, that you can have the exact same situation, that you have one person saying something and one person hearing it completely different. And that's why they say that there's three sides or three parts to a conversation and it's actually more than that, because it's what I said, what you heard, what you said, what I heard, and what was actually said and heard and what was meant, you know? So human communication, you think that it should be simple, but it actually isn't. And then of course we're very informed by the background that we come from and the other factors in our life, such as trauma, things like this, and how we take X, Y, and Z, or choose not to take something. So human conversation in general and maintaining human relationships can be very difficult without this trickery of what we're seeing in media, and whether that's mainstream or alternative or whatever that happens to be, but it adds another level of complexity. And then of course what you were saying, Denver, as far as, yes, changing definitions, that, you know, newspeak, that makes it even more complicated.
Well, yeah, just knowing what words people are going to understand among your intended audience and what words people aren't going to understand, and avoiding the latter. You know, if you want to achieve the intent of the standard communications model, you want to make the message as easily read as possible, right?
The censorship. Censorship and controlling of language and gaslighting is meant to break that simplicity down. Let's just say I'm the only guy with red hair in a crowd of 100 people, and you know, someone says, "Hey, did you go talk to Jason Barker?" Like, who's that? He's the guy with the red hair over there. Oh, can't say that because now you're shaming people with
you're
red
shaming
hair.
Gingers, bruh.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of important, that the control of language. And I don't want to get too far on this. We're almost an hour in already, and we haven't got to Denver stuff. So can we move it on down the line, right?
Let's go.
All right. So I'm going to preface this before I hand it over to Denver to go through his material, which you did a lot of preparation. And I'm okay with going over 2 hours. If you guys are okay, can I say guys? Is that okay? If
I can make it fairly concise. It looks like more material than it is.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let everybody know why I asked Denver on. It was basically because I came across the Speed Act, and I asked him to dig into it because I know he's a technical guy. He likes to read. I mean, he could go cover to cover on a technical manual and then read it again as entertainment. He's that technical. I can't do it, dry reading. But a couple weeks ago, if you all remember, a few weeks ago, I was heading out of town, and Tiger ended up having to host the show because my laptop died, and something. I got to look into these AI and data center things through a new lens as I was looking for a new laptop, right? Number one, I'll say that the hard drive died on it. That's what killed it. The hard drive controller and the hard drive both, but I got the computer working again with a different hard drive. But a lot of my work was lost because I watch little JJ down in the shop, and that's my shop computer, and I'll be working on show stuff, graphics, outlines, things like that down there. And I don't always back it up like every day to my main backup drive upstairs. So I lost a lot of the work. And that's something that is kind of important in this topic because people like to use cloud-based services now. So they have their data on the go on any device that they get on, or you buy it. You know, a good example, we've all upgraded our cell phone, right? And it downloads all of your contacts, all of your texts, all your photos, everything from the cloud. That cloud and that lens I'm looking through is like, what are these data centers about? Okay, it's not just AI. We tend to think it's AI. It's not. Okay, it is AI, but it's also the mass storage of your data which they could lose your data because we have not taken the responsibility to save our own data, to work offline. And anyway, let me just run a couple quick little videos or stuff or whatever. I'll add this to stage first. So let me go back to the beginning. So my laptop died on me, right? And I was looking for a new one. And I'm looking at this. This is just one, for example. This is on Amazon, $298. That's not a bad price for a decent laptop. But take a look at what it has. Microsoft 365 with 1.1 terabyte of storage, and that's cloud storage. So what I'm trying to get at here is we need to be cognizant. Don't just look at AI, look at data itself. And Karen talks about this all the time. You know, she always says, you always say, Karen, that you try as much as possible not to use those things which would engage or cause a necessity for these AI and data centers. But I don't think people realize, they think that they're not participating, but they are. And right now, if you go on Amazon or anywhere else, you cannot buy a computer that has Windows 10 or less on it, a new computer. They all have Windows 11 on it because Windows 10 hit the end of life, end of support on purpose, planned obsolescence, right?
Yep.
Planned obsolescence. So I'm looking at this. I was saying, okay, so it comes with Microsoft 365. It has cloud-based storage for Microsoft 365. So understand, Microsoft is running from one of these data centers. Your work is stored in a data center. It has 1 terabyte cloud storage, which is an additional terabyte on a data center. And then we got 365 Office. So everything you do on the internet now is utilizing a data center, because they went from the model, and there's two purposes to this. They went from a model of you own something and you maintain your data and you organize it, you delete it as needed, you rename it, whatever, to now everything is out there. So they're going to a rental model, because that 1 terabyte of data, if you're doing things like we're doing, like podcasting, that terabyte is going to get filled up pretty doggone quick if you're storing things on the cloud. You really need to have your own offline storage and try not to use that. But people are going to be pushed into it because their old computer is going to stop working. I've realized this lately, trying to pay bills. My wife has Windows 7 on hers. I have Windows 8 on mine. I can still pay the bills, like all the bills. Hers, she can't go to a lot of the sites because her browser is not up to the latest security. And we can't update the browser because she has Windows 7. So she needs to upgrade to Windows 8. And right now, I don't know if you've noticed, and I don't want to take Denver's time away, but everything is telling me, it logs me out. I have to log in. We've talked about this before, 2 and 3 factor authentication, blah, blah, blah. It's bugging me right now. Every time I go on Rumble, I get that green banner. I'm sure you've all seen it. Attach your wallet to this. It's like badgering you. It's pestering you to give up more information. And when you understand that all of this information, I don't care if you're using 4 or 5 different services, they could all be housed on the same data center. And it doesn't matter because these data centers are talking to one another. So you are building your digital twin. I just want people to be aware of that. You know, they talk about being aware of your carbon footprint. Be aware of your digital footprint. And these newer computers won't run the old software either. The old software that you can work offline. Everything has to be connected. Also, Windows 11 comes with a digital AI assistant. It's built in. So everything you do, it's using AI somewhere, whether you're utilizing it or not. The AI is being utilized to look at what you're doing. And I'll show you real quick. I'm going to run through this as quick as I can, Denver. So here we go. Microsoft will soon allow AI to change your Windows 11 settings. Do I need AI to go in there and change my mouse setting? No, but it's being forced upon us. Little small things like that. They're going to make Windows 11 even richer with AI. It's already there because I looked at computers. They already have this AI. I forget what it's called, a AI system. It's also called something else.
Cortana.
That might be what it's called. But anyway, a new agent that can assist users in the settings app. Assistant will be capable of adjusting user setting on request, including adjusting mouse precision and asking questions on how to perform specific tasks. Sounds pretty benign, but not really.
Yeah.
If you go down here, let's see. And this part of the solution. So if you do have to get Windows 11, this is a solution. There's a GitHub script that claims to wipe Windows 11's AI features in seconds. So if we want to be cognizant about using this stuff and creating a demand for these centers, then we need to know how to not use it. So we got to be a little bit smarter about our online presence. Let's see here. We got, and then this is Microsoft itself, Copilot. That's what they call it. I call it Copilot. To plan, book, and prepare a family getaway with the next text or voice prompt. So they're using prompts, and that's what the AI is. The AI is to take a prompt, try to figure out what you want, and then kick something out as a result. So that's basically what AI is doing. And let's see what else. And then image editing and stuff like that. So the AI is more than just adjusting your settings according to Windows. It's going to be involved in everything you do. And I'm going to run this real quick because you might think that we're moving into this age, and I was kind of there with the data centers until I realized it's like 2 or 3, maybe 4 big players that have these data centers. So they're coagulating your data into a digital twin is what they're doing. And these data centers, without data centers, there is no cloud. The cloud isn't magical mist up there where your data is stored. And they have backups upon backups upon backups. So one data center can do this. They're going to have 3, 4 of them that are backups of those because they're kind of responsible for your data. They can also mess with your data. But let me play a real quick short part of this here for those who don't know the impact, the environmental impact and social impact of a data center going into your area. Let me mute myself here.
Giant warehouses are popping up across the US, more than 2 every week. They feed AI algorithms, store photos, and answer our questions.
Hey Google.
A data center campus like this can consume as much power and water as an entire city. And many of the biggest server farms are emerging from the desert. But there's no official record of how many of these are being built, where they are, or even who owns them.
To be honest, I've never really run into so much.
All right, and that video, if we watch the whole thing, you'll see that these guys actually did the homework to find out who owns them, and that's how we find that is only like 3 or 4 people that own all of these data centers. Let's see what else. I'm going to try to blow through this real quick, man. I got 2 more things. This is going to lead right into your topic, bro. So data center construction rolls into 2026. As 2025 may have come to an end, but the data center construction boom continued. And you can go and read the full article, but we don't see it slowing down. It's not like they got what they needed. They're going to continue. And as Windows 11 rolls out and other things roll out, the security states roll out, more and more demand for this. And there's a lot of states, just kind of like I said, I'm trying to preface this for Denver to take it. A lot of states are pushing back because of those requirements for power, for water. It's harming people. It's causing people's electricity bills to go up. People can't water their plants. And I have a whole thing on that I was going to cover a couple weeks ago, where farmers are being put out of business because they're not allowed to use the water to water their crops to grow food because they're not one of the big agri people. They're like smaller farmers, maybe 100, 200 acres. They're not allowed to use the water because of a nearby data center that requires the water. And so they're rationed on it. Very big deal. And then we have this, and this is going to lead right into you, Denver. House passes a bill that could fast track AI infrastructure projects. The SPEED Act, main topic of the day, even though we're an hour in. We can finally get to the main topic of the day. So the nuts and bolts of the SPEED Act is to cut red tape so that we can win this global AI race. And that is prefacing the show for you, Denver. Are you ready? And he just went out. He just went off stage.
Okay, answer me this question. Handy asked, what if we switch to Linux?
And that is exactly, I wanted to talk more, but because we're already almost an hour in. So I bought this machine right here. Talk about solutions. I bought this. It's an older refurbished Toshiba. I bought this as a laptop replacement for the one that fried, although I did get my other one working. So I told Handy I might send this to him because he's looking for that. But this one I actually got with Windows 8 on, Windows 8 on it. because it doesn't support Windows 11. So I bought an older computer that's fully upgraded, fully restored, but won't hold Windows 11. So I put Windows 8 on it. It will not update to a Windows 11 on its own. That's a problem I've been having is you turn all that crap off. Ever since Windows 8, you turn it off, you go through the registry, you do all the stuff to make it not update. It's still going to freaking update on you.
Uh-huh.
And then, and on top of that, they're logging you out of everything. So you got to log back in and deal with all that. It's a whole other topic for another day. But you're going to have to go old tech if you don't want to support this Leviathan of the cloud, everything being on the cloud, requiring data centers and AI it's interweaved in with it. You got to go old school. Now, I know I was going to hand it over, Denver, but this is important. The reason that we have to be online in the first place, other than doing a podcast, is because that's how we pay our bills. How do I go down and pay my MasterCard bill downtown with cash? I can't. You have to pay it online. Slowly but surely, all of these places we pay our bills are not allowing us to get on unless we're on the current operating system. However, Linux is a viable option because Linux stays up to date. I prefer Linux Mint. I think that's a pretty good solid one. It operates a lot like, or looks GUI wise, graphical user interface wise, it looks a lot like and operates a lot like Windows 7, which I like. So I think we're going to start looking at solutions like that in order to exist in society without adding to the need for these AI and data centers. We're going to have to look at maybe older technology or maybe even newer technology, but go with a different operating system.
Yeah.
That I think that is the solution. What we can do. I just really wanted to talk about this to bring awareness to, people want to harp on AI and data centers, but they don't realize that they are a part of the problem and they don't realize it, So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to you. Sorry, we're an hour in before I hand it over.
No, it's just fine. It's just fine.
Yeah. If you get your screen ready, I can throw your screen on if it's easier for you to share that way.
We can just kind of play it by ear.
Okay.
The cost of compute for maintaining the current trajectory that we are building these centers at and what the electricity demands are going to be, the chips necessary, all that. McKinsey produced a report a few months back titled "The Cost to Compute." And I think it came to $6.8 billion by 2030. And that's not just the USA, that's worldwide. So will we make it to what they are charting us for as far as having the necessary power to do it? Remains to be seen. It's possible. Some people will say, no, it's not. It's just not going to happen. But I could take this discussion one more point and it'll come back up later. One of the proposed solutions is to manage the data in such a way to where the large language models and all that, which are incredibly data heavy, the AI models, operative models, very data heavy in the cloud. They're going to embed them into radio waves and just let it work that way. But we'll come back around to that. Oh, and another fun fact, our buddy Larry Ellison, the Oracle guy, close Trump confidant, largest private donor to the IDF in history, or he's given the largest single donation to them of any person walking the planet. You can check me on this, but I'm pretty sure he's the guy who came up with the whole idea about the cloud. And I remember having a conversation back in 2009-ish or so, as the cloud was just starting to happen. And I was having this conversation with a former McKinsey consultant who went on to be a very successful corporate executive, a buddy of mine named Amit Shah. And we were like, you know, is this legitimate? And we were both like, it seems like a way to just rebrand data storage at a higher price point, because you look at the cost of storage on a timeline, like per gigabyte, terabyte, whatever. The cost of local storage, i.e. not the cloud, you know, has continued to go down. Like even from that point, from when we were discussing it back then, as it would be expected to, in conformance with Moore's law and all that. But it's like this same guy who is deeply involved with, you know, AI, Israel, IDF, media, yeah. The legacy data of corporations, and, you know, putting legacy data, like that's one of the businesses that Oracle really got started in, was being able to take like the old, let's use like the Blockbuster example, like a Blockbuster type legacy system and modernize it, you know, and make the old data accessible easily and all that shit. That's what their business model was largely built on. You know, not, you know, aside from all the, you know, possible CIA and intelligence oriented type stuff. But okay, so the SPEED Act. So as it relates to all of these data centers, you know, you ask yourself, you know, is this going to happen near me? You would definitely want to know, because as Jason was pointing to, and as everybody's mentioned, it has real impacts on the local community. So one of the intents of the SPEED Act is actually to bypass any triggers that would result in an environmental impact study, a study looking at the impact of the proposed project on agriculture, bodies of water, resources, population centers. You know, so you might understand why they want to not have to do that stuff, as we're looking at going full ham on building data centers everywhere, right?
And the federal government has come in and made legislation to where the states can't stop them. So, you know, and like I said, I had some stuff on local farmers saying, hey, we can't water our crops, we're going out of business. Now that's a twofold right there. Number one, you're getting rid of the local farmers, and the big guys grab up that land. Guarantee you they'll be allowed to use the water. Okay. They're not going to be regulated the same as an independent farmer. And then number two, it's going to drive up everyone's prices. It's going to drive people out of those rural areas because they can't afford the electricity. They can't afford this, X, Y, and Z, or maybe eminent domain takes their property.
Yeah, it's theft. Yeah. It is theft. It comes down to theft. Like at the basic level, you know, they put a data center in, your rates are going to go up. Your quality of life is going to go down despite it costing more. You know, your water is going to be, your water's already toxic, frankly, but it's going to be even more toxic, you know?
You know what really grinds my gears on this is I looked into this because I actually questioned this and thought it maybe was hype. You know, when I fill up my radiator in my car with, 50-50 mix of coolant and water, it's not like the more I drive my car, the more water I'm using. It's a closed loop system. So I questioned it. And I actually emailed David Knight about it because he talked about the water usage, and I looked it up. I had a video to play on it several weeks ago. I don't have it anymore, but it's like, is it actually using this water? And it has to be drinking water. It has to be the cleanest water. They can't just run a lake and cycle it back in there, because it has to be, I don't want to call our drinking water purified by any stretch, right? I know Karen's got something to say about that. The thing is that there is an option to do a closed loop system. there's absolutely an option, just like your air conditioner runs on a coolant.
Yeah.
They could do that. They could basically do the same thing with to keep these processors cool.
Yeah, but
and
that
well, the thing is, the cheaper method is to just have a massive heat sink that they keep sprayed with water, much like I've seen people do this in their turbo cars. They have an intercooler and they'll put water sprayers on there that they use, basically that like sprays water on your windshield. They'll install them there to super cool that intercooler. It super cools the air. They get more, more air per cubic inch or whatever. They could put more fuel in there. Anyway, they're going the cheap route. They don't need to consume this water. They could have a closed loop system, but it costs a little bit more. And what I saw was that there's a power drain. So you lose on either end, because if they have a closed loop system, you have pumps, compressors, you have all this other stuff. You have these heat exchanges with fans. So it's a trade-off between, do we increase our power requirements to run and the cost of putting in a closed loop system, or do we just throw water on it and it uses an evaporation method?
And also there's in a closed loop system, I'm no scientist, but there's a thermal capacity to that limited amount of water in that closed loop system.
And then here's another thing too. When they're using that much water and you're using an evaporation method to cool something, that water goes into the air.
That's right.
At some point it's going to come down as rain. So downrange, downwind, you are affecting climate, because you're injecting all of this H2O into the air, and we got the chemtrailing and the cloud seeding going on. We could be seeing like random thunderstorms and rains that typically didn't see it, because the water is just basically moving. The earth is a closed loop system.
Well, and you'd have to think if they're using clean water to maintain a cooler temperature of, like the type of gear that contains all types of toxic elements and cadmium and everything else, you'd think that ultimately some of that water is going to pick up trace amounts of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was a concern as well. But anyway, I didn't mean to side.
I mean, once it goes into the water column, it's hard to imagine like what actually becomes. I don't know.
Well,
maybe it stays resident right there in the data center. But
I was looking at a report yesterday. Maybe it was this morning. I don't remember. But somebody was, talking about the aluminum levels in bees. It's like 700 or 70 times or something. Yeah. And people are saying, "Oh, well, that's just it's just normal stuff." If people don't understand, aluminum does not exist in nature in its pure form.
How many statistical standard deviations from the mean would what was the figure you said? 400%?
No, I think it was 70 times. I mean, I'm going off memory here.
70 times. I said 400.
70 times.
70 times is much more than 400%.
They say bees have Alzheimer's now. I don't, I don't think they're diagnosing bees with Alzheimer's. I think the point is the bees are having trouble navigating and doing what they're naturally intended to do. And no doubt it's from, glyphosate, aluminum, and also all of these EMF
5G. Yeah, 5G. But that's what it was. The number was the amount of aluminum saved for a person, parts per million, or however they measure it. In the bees, they have 70 times more than what we would like. If we got more than that, then we would have Alzheimer's, but it's 70 times more. So the person was arguing, what are we being exposed to? What being exposed to, right? But it was interesting. But that stuff could be getting in our water too, as you said, through these. It goes in the water. I don't know what happens to it. The water evaporates. Does it go with the water? I have no idea.
Not when it evaporates, it wouldn't. But it's like these places generally have, other. I can't think of the name of it, but essentially a way to channel excess water out of the facility, and that would probably be the water that would have any toxicity out of it. Any toxicity in it anyway. Yeah,
that begs the question: where does that water go? Does it go into a creek, a river?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right, I didn't mean to sidetrack us there, Denver. It's
all good.
So,
No, I think all of that stuff is directly relevant to the discussion, and really a lot can be characterized as, you know, how I surmised it in just a few sentences. It's an attempt to hide information and limit the amount of public pushback and involvement, or, you know, even having a PR say in the matters, you know, and to limit recourse to 150 days. When you're talking about what happened with Teflon and pants, that literally took decades to materialize, right? So you put that 150-day law in place, and it's just like, well, all these thousands of people have really bad cancers, and all their animals are fucked. And well, you know, it's past the 150-day limit, so you can go kick sand.
And you know, this goes back to what we talked about earlier after the verse of the week. We talked about public discourse and fighting amongst ourselves and the mind control, radicalizing people. They do that so we're distracted so they could pass this through. And if you don't mind, we talked a little bit about the Speed Act. If you could just summarize that again. And then I hadn't heard of this, but the MAP 21, and then how NEPA is involved in this fast tracking these AI and data centers, which have a huge impact on communities.
Well, NIPA is the National Environmental Protection Agency, I believe is what the acronym is for that. And it is, you know, of course, no government bureaucracy body is all good or all bad. That's not the world we live in. But they are the people that have the mandate of protecting the public interests, and to see that things are not like overtly damaging from a toxicity standpoint. And of course, there's all kinds of loopholes and everything else. But the people at NIPA seem to do what they can with an ever diminishing budget and an ever diminishing workforce. So, you know, when it comes to doing these reviews and things like that, well, of course it takes forever, because the United States Congress has successively cut the budget for these activities in order to lengthen the amount of time that process takes, right? So that is what creates the pretext where it's like, oh, the regulations bad, you all got to go and get rid of it. Yeah. So that's my piece on that bit. The first, let me share a quick one that is by, it's called the Western Law Organization. It's more of like, it's kind of left leaning, but, you know, definitely more aligned with environmental protections than the U.S. Congress.
Let me ask you something before we move on.
Like their take.
Before we move on, I want to ask you something, because
okay.
And I want people to understand the link between the national the NEPA and the Speed Act. So the Speed Act basically says we're going to bypass, or we're going to we're going to fast track, and not. It's almost like they did with the COVID jab. We're going to bypass all these methods to put something out, and we have no idea what the impact's going to be. We're going to do it anyway. That's what they're doing with this. Now, let me ask you this.
They know. I'd challenge that. I'd say they know exactly what the impact is going to be, because you can already observe it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in key variables, in the key variables of the cost of electricity to the population centers that are going to be affected, and the impact on those population centers' water, any agriculture, anything like that. I mean, the process itself has been jiggered by sophists, and the art of sophistry is procedural manipulation. You can take that line to the bank. That's my own.
Well, if you or I were to open a new, let's just say we had a business making boats, right? Mm-hmm. Or making trucks or whatever we do. We're a small fish in the big pond, but we want to open a business. We're going to be held to that standard where they're going to come in and see our facility. It's like building a house. You're going to get inspected. They're going to look at your drainage. They're going to look at your power setup, all this stuff. If it impacts the community, they're going to make you make changes, or you're going to be fined on it or something. But these people are getting a pass on it. The big 3 or 4 are getting a pass on it. So
Massive
my
exemption.
question is, why do we pay for a government agency, NEPA? We pay for them, but then they just bypass them. Just do away with them then. Let people do what they want and have tort. Like if I'm a farmer and I can't water my crops because you're using all the water, then I can take you to court. But I'm sure that the next, and I'm going to predict this. I don't like to make predictions. I like to see trends. But I'm going to predict that these AI and data centers are going to wind up getting some kind of immunity. You can't take them to court because we've already, and Karen has covered this. Ashley's covered it. We've all covered it. The health impacts of these fans running constantly at these data centers. Literally, people are getting sick and dying. Having to go on medication. Animals too. So I really do foresee that there is going to be something like with vaccine immunity that was done in what the 80s under Reagan. I think they're going to do something because this is considered national security. We
Absolutely.
have to win the race to the AI, and they can't be sued. So just deal with it or move. And guess what? They'll throw these things out in rural areas, and we all have to move into a 15-minute city. So it's like function stacking, as Ashley likes to say.
Yeah, many birds with one stone.
We've been talking about water a lot in the chat, and it seems apparent to me, and I've said this over and over, is that water will be a premium. Water is, we need water to live. Water is the number one thing that it's much more important than food. Without water, we're sunk. And the quality of the water that we have in our body is key to our health. So I see digital water meters everywhere at some point, and they're already in a lot of places. I know that some farmers in rural areas are having water meters installed on their personal wells. And we've seen the price of electricity go through the roof to the point where people are really struggling to even use a heater or an air conditioner. And at some point, that will affect people's, possibly be life-threatening for people who can't use heating or air conditioning. It already is for some people, but it'll become even more of a concern. But the water, the ability to have fresh drinking water at rates that we can afford will become a real problem. And then also, we've seen efforts during COVID. The USDA asked us to register our home gardens, and we've seen drones mapping home yards and other farming and other places where we can possibly grow food. So I see an issue with a lot of us are trying to become more self-sufficient and grow our foods, have victory gardens, etc. But with water being at such a premium, it may become come to the point where we won't even have enough access to water to grow food for ourselves.
And there's some places that ban you from collecting rainwater because that is a public resource that you're hoarding. And if water becomes scarce, I see more places doing that, saying you can't collect rainwater, or maybe only one drum of water, which was the limit we had in Colorado.
And where I live, I live in Central California, and several years ago, we were asked not to water our lawns, to let our lawns die. So we let our lawn die. The renters, people who owned rentals, kept watering their lawns, but we let our lawn die. We don't have a lawn. We prioritize watering our trees. We're only allowed to water our trees 2 or 3 days a week. Over on the coastal cities, which, and this has been going back into the 70s, they have water rationing very strongly in the coastal areas of California. So there have already been water supply issues with the way that water is being managed. I think there's plenty of water. If you talk about primary water, Deborah Tavares talks about the key importance of having access to primary water, which is something that we don't have much discussion about. But I think that water is something we really need to start talking about more.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to go through and point out a couple takes. from the Western Environmental Law Center. Not endorsing them as an organization, but I tend to agree with a lot of what they state here, not in totality, but pretty good take. Okay, so as the climate and biodiversity crisis rage across America, you can argue that point. Representative Westerman and Golden, I'm pretty sure that's a Equatorial New Guinea surname, right? Introduced the Standardizing, Permitting, and Expediting Economic Development, or SPEED Act, under the guise of streamlining infrastructure permitting. The proposed law takes an axe to the bedrock environmental law, the Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Permit reform advocates fallen prey to numerous myths that NEPA is impeding construction of roads, housing, other infrastructure, yet data provides the law leads to better decisions and ultimately better projects instead of taking a reasoned approach to identifying and addressing specific needs. The bill would open the door to plundering our nation's resources and land and dramatically cut back the public's ability to be heard during project development or to seek redress for violations of law in court. Last week, WELC led a coalition of 27 Western conservative groups, authoring a letter to Representative Huffman and the members of the U.S. Committee on National Resource, advising all to exercise extreme caution on NEPA rollbacks. So those are conservative organizations, conservative groups. Like, don't poison us, bro, you know? The sponsor's press release bemoans NEPA's cumbersome and lengthy process, which experts agree is rooted in chronic underfunding and understaffing federal agencies, a problem created by Congress. The sponsors complain that NEPA is currently the most litigated environmental statute, but the fact is less than 0.25% of NEPA decisions end up in court annually. The SPEED Act in Congress is certain to virtually eliminate public participation in crucial environmental and health protections, opening the door to unchecked public lands exploitation without consideration of impacts to ecosystems and the communities that depend on them. The SPEED Act's proposal to reduce the timeline for filing a legal claim from 72 months to 5 months would dramatically limit communities' ability to seek recourse for harms to air, water, landscapes. The bill would provide
real quick, Denver, can I jump in there?
Sure.
This is important. By reducing the time to file a claim, very similar to what they've done with vaccines. So in 5 months, you may not directly see the impact. It may take a year or 2 years before you directly see the impact, and by then it's too late. And it's the same way with vaccines. If you're injured from a vaccine, you may not see it immediately. It may be 6 months, a year, 2 years out, and then they have the plausible deniability of saying, well, maybe that was caused by something else. So this is very important. Like I said, I view this SPEED Act, and that's why I say I think they're going to come out with a liability protections, because basically this is how it works. When it comes to resources, we're restricted in every way. We have to beg for permits, right? That's why they call it permits for everything. We have to comply with everything. If we cause damage, then we can be sued. But the stakeholders in this technocracy build out are not. And I think that's the key that I wanted to try to get to in this episode, is that these acts are setting up the same thing that they did for vaccines, where they're going to push through this agenda regardless of what the state wants, the town wants, the rural area wants, or the people want. And they're not held to the same kind of standards because this is not to keep up with the world stage AI and be on top. This is bringing on our own technocracy for control. And we're providing fuel on the fire by using the things we use every day and not being aware that we are creating a demand for these data centers that will later be used against us. That's why, I wanted to talk about solutions. And Handy, I seen in the private chat here that they said Handy was talking about the same thing about Linux getting away from reliance. Because if nobody needs these things, we're basically funding it, right? We're funding it. And then once it's built out, once the infrastructure is built out, it will be turned on us.
Yeah.
They have us begging for our own control. I mean, look at what ICE is doing right now. And I called this 2 years ago in the foxhole. I said they will be flying drones over the United States over this immigration stuff, illegally flying drones over the United States. They're talking about doing that right now with facial recognition and geofencing and tracking your phone. And they're not going to be tracking the illegals. They're going to be tracking you.
Everyone.
So, all right. Yep. And we're funding it. We're funding it by using the services. And so, more and more, I agree with Karen on abstinence from this as much as we possibly can. I know it's impossible because they've gotten rid of legacy systems, legacy ways of doing things. They've gone away. We still have to pay our bills. We still have to function in society. So we got to make some hard choices right now and look for some creative ways to not feed into this system. So there we go. I'm done, man.
Indubitably. But I want to make this point here. They point out Congress has passed numerous updates to the National Environmental Protection Act that are meaningfully reducing permitting times, such as FAST 21, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Financial Responsibility Act, and others. The big beautiful bill helped fast track this stuff too. It's totally fabulous. So it's not as if, the justification that they're even stating has merit, because they've continued, like pretty much every piece of legislation under Trump has just been, one more axe swing at the base of the tree of any public or environmental recourse. They just want to break ground, right? They want the permits, break ground, sunken cost, then all you can eat pork, pork buffet for all these assholes,
That's what frustrates me about people that are still MAGA is that they don't see what he's doing is he's pushing through this stuff so quickly and it's all in support of the big tech bros, consolidation, and technocracy. 100%. It's so frustrating. I voted for Trump the first time. Yeah, I did. He didn't do what he promised. He said he was going to do, like building the wall and putting Hillary in jail and all this other stuff. And he's repeating that cycle right now. What did he run on this time? Release the Epstein files. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. None of it has happened. I'm going to end wars. Well, we're in more wars now, aren't we? So I don't know why people can't see it. And all these distractions that are being created, the stuff that the conservatives don't want to see, which is a technocracy. Apparently they don't want to see that. They don't want to see total control of what you can buy, what you can spend. You know what? I've got something. Let me find this real quick. I just want to show you where this is going to go. I got so much stuff on here. Oh my God, where is it? CBD, here it is. I got to share this. This is where we're headed, folks, and we're funding it. Oh, well, not heading to Knights of the Storm, but you can fund us if you want. Let's see if I can find, this is all, okay. Here's a guy. It's a teacher whose bank account was frozen after using they, them pronouns. This is what this system will be used for, folks.
My name is Enoch Burke, and I'm a teacher of German and history at Wills Hospital School in County Westmeath. I'm standing here today outside my local Bank of Ireland branch at Castlebar in County Mayo. This is my bank, and I've just attempted to withdraw funds from this bank account, but with no success. The account is frozen by order of Judge Nolan in the High Court. This was on foot of an application made by the Attorney General, Mr. Rossa Fanning, and accompanied also by lawyers for the Minister for Finance, Mr. Pascal Donoghue, and the Minister for Education, Ms. Helen McEntee. And okay, I won't let that run forever. It's kind of a long clip, but this goes into what we're going to see happen here. What happens in Europe eventually comes here, and we're funding it. The Speed Act is rushing it through. There will be no recourse.
And if we do, I mean, heck, if you do go to court, eventually it may be an AI judge. There's actually a movie coming out about that I want to see. I forget what it's called, but I retweeted it on Twitter. But it talks about that, about being charged and having an AI judge, and you're basically guilty, and you have to prove to AI that you're innocent. That's the premise of the movie. But I want to show one more. This is stuff I had for quite a while. This is on renting. This movie or this video is on renting everything. This girl thinks it's a good idea that you don't own anything. Here it is. Here's a Chinese lady. No digital ID. You can't buy food. Let me go ahead and mute myself and play this.
So the latest in this.
Oh, I want to also preface this with so they got her away to buy food, and because she was flagged through their social credit system, her new method got shut down as well. So this is where we're headed, folks.
Utopian outrage that is now all of China apparently is I once again cannot buy food. A couple days ago, my uncle and my cousin helped me get a cell phone that is linked to a Chinese bank card so that I could buy anything. But now, apparently, it has been flagged for some reason, and I have to pass facial recognition identity verification, which is insane, because all I want to do is just spend my gift card balance on this debit card.
And there you go. I just wanted to share that because that's what these centers will be used to do, is to implement these types of measures to control us.
Yeah, it's not a rental-based model. It's a permission-based existence model.
That is well stated.
Yeah, that's not my own term. That's Jason Bassler. Jason Bassler shared that on an X post where he had Larry Fink essentially saying that in every so many words about all the currencies being linked and everything else, and total surveillance.
Social credit score, CBDC, or stablecoin, digital money, digital tokens. If you don't behave, you're cut off.
Well, and it's the world, and I've been arguing this as long as I mean, even when I first started on Rockfin, just like sharing links in the chat, it has been my position that Belt and Road will play a significant role in the world that is ascending, right? And what it looks like is that nations that have legal protections for speech and, exercising their ability to disagree with a given public position in public, these people are being arrested for legal behavior, like on the books legal behavior, right? And that's what they want to do here in the United States. And it's really been a mission creep to just criminalizing more and more legal behavior. And it's sad to see.
Well, let me throw this out there right quick. You don't have to be charged with a crime that's a legal thing to do, like speech, right? Speech is legal. What they can do is they can make you become a criminal by cutting off your ties. Yeah. So people become desperate. They want to feed their children. Maybe I'm going to take my gun and go rob the store. The people are going to become really desperate. I'd love to hear, let the ladies talk about everything we've talked about, if we can, for a minute.
Well, I would say, Jason, I'm glad you're coming around to see that I wasn't just a nut job all this time, as far as all this, the AI. And we know, I think most of us are well aware here that we're headed into a track and trace digital surveillance prison. And well, for example, my daughter and I were talking about Instagram the other day, and I had a direct message on Instagram from Scott Helmer. However, I have an Instagram account I never use. I don't know how to find the DMs. I asked my daughter, what do I need to do to look at my DMs on Instagram? And she said, I think you need to do this and that. And it's like they wanted information. My account is not complete there. So I said, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to feed the AI. They're scraping everything that we put on Instagram and Facebook is going into AI. So I am not going to complete my Instagram account. I don't post there. I never have, but I do have the beginnings of an account there. So I think it's these types of things, not using them as much as possible, not using the AI. I see people talking to Grok. I just threw it into Grok. Well, every time you're doing that, and I know a lot of these people know better, and they say it's an investigation or they're just checking it out. Well, it's checking you out, and it's recording everything that you say to it and logging how to manipulate you and what your views on. And of course, it does that with everything. Somebody said they use Twitch. I've never had Twitch. I don't have an Apple account. And I would love to give my Scott Helmer's song. I talked to Ashley about this, but it's on Apple, and I don't have an Apple account. I don't want an Apple account at this point if I've lived this long without it. I don't use Spotify. I do have a Spotify account. If I want to really listen to something on Spotify, I download it, listen to what I want to listen to, and uninstall it. I have a 2024 Ford car, never connected a phone to it, which means there's a lot of things I can't use, that are the bells and whistles, but I've never allowed my phone to connect to it. So I'm sure people would say I'm crazy and why am I putting myself through this, depriving myself of all of this modern technology and that life is easy and convenient. But that's the way that they get us, is through convenience. And they've tried so hard to push us online now and make us familiar with it and comfortable with it, isolate us, build our own little matrix bubble with our own personal little reality. And the AI will only continue to contribute to that. So I just think it's really, really important that we, as much as we can, try to remain, guard your humanity. Really think about what it is that makes us human and what it is that's feeding into this digital panopticon and dystopian world. I saw that Australia has a new law on the books, or is wanting to pass a law that limits free speech, and that the government will be allowed to decide what the intent of the person speaking was, whether it was to harm or not. There doesn't even need to be someone who complains about your speech toward them. The government decides if that was hurtful or not speech. And this is in Australia. So I think that we're moving so quickly toward this. And then we have all the environmental impacts. We've been talking about human consequences. Look at the environmental consequences, as if rivers quit flowing, if the water cycle is interrupted. The water cycle life is dependent on the water cycle, and the climate will definitely change, and we'll have areas that become desertification in some areas, possibly. It could get really bleak. So I'm glad that people are, and Jason and other people are maybe taking this more seriously and looking into it a little more in depth. And there are so many areas that it's almost too much for one person to grasp. And I think that that's also by design. So I'm really glad that we're talking about these things today. And those are just some of the things that I do to try to limit my digital footprint. And I know, here I am. I use Rumble. I use my actual name, but so I'm a hypocrite too, but I am trying in the ways that I can to limit my footprint.
Real quick, I'm sorry.
Got some advice that might save people's lives if shit does hit the fan. All you need to get water is a Dixie cup and some saran wrap.
Right.
And dig yourself a hole. Put the Dixie cup down at the bottom of the hole. Put the saran wrap over it with a little bit of dimple over the cup, and over time the water will collect in the cup.
That's
and for
actually in the
heaven's
Ranger
sake,
handbook.
get yourself one of those little straws that you filter water. Have some chlorine
Life straw.
dioxide on hand. Yeah, life straw. I have some chlorine dioxide on hand. You can get a great little water filtration kit for $25. And then also remember there's 30 to however many gallons of water in your water heater if you have the old-fashioned tank water heaters.
But you
Just
got
a
to shut
couple
off your
things
main
there.
valve. You have to shut off your main valve if the water stops coming, so that doesn't back up into the system. Jack Lawson talks about that in his book.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but before we hand it over to Ashley, I just wanted to hit on 2 points that you mentioned, Karen. Number one was Scott Helmer. I meant to say that in the announcements, and I forgot. His booking agent asked me to put that out, that he has that on iTunes now. I'm in the same boat as you. I don't have iTunes, so I can't buy it. I'm going to reach out and see if there's somewhere else we can buy it. And it wasn't so much that they're trying to sell. I think it's 99 cents or something. It's like less than $1. But the thing is that they're trying to push them to the chart, top or higher up the charts to get the message out. So I totally condone that. Maybe I'll give somebody some money that has iTunes to download that.
that's an idea.
Yeah, use it. And I think we're going to have to do that going forward as we're pushed into this box, that we're going to have surrogates to do things for us. Like I have silver. They're like, oh, you can't take silver to the supermarket. No, but I give my neighbor silver and he can go use his card to buy food. You know what I'm saying? There's ways around it.
I had to do that at a basketball game. I went to see my niece play at a high school basketball game and a track game. They wouldn't take cash. I had to have somebody who had carried their phone, because I leave my phone in the car a lot of times. And I had to buy the ticket online on my phone, and I left my phone in the car. So I had somebody else buy me a ticket.
Yeah. And I think that's a solution, because I think it's important we talk about solutions like using Linux, as Handy mentioned, and I talk about quite often. But anyway, the other point I wanted to make was, you have a car with all the bells and whistles and you elect not to use them. That's good, because you don't get into that comfortable, I don't know how to say that, the comfortable mode, okay, of where you can't live without it, right? And the other thing is that those free things eventually move into a subscription model, and they nickel and dime you to death and keep you broke.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had Netflix, where we used to be able to get the streaming service and the DVDs, and then they split that into two, and then you can only get 2 DVDs at a time. You had to mail them back in a certain amount of time, and then the streaming service went up, and it just slowly nickel and dime you into this rental model. Same with Amazon Prime. We got Amazon Prime in the early days of Amazon for the free shipping, for the free 2-day shipping. Guess what? Not all shipping is free anymore. It's not always 2 days. Sometimes it's a week, and it costs more. And then we got the video. Well, the video used to be anything on Amazon Prime Video was free. Nope. Now you got to rent it. Only certain things are free. Maybe you get into a season, you're binge watching, I don't know, The Walking Dead or something.
And you go to season 3 and it's paywalled.
It's paywalled. Exactly. Yeah. So this is what they're doing. They're slowly getting rid of legacy stuff so that we get into this new model. This is the forced industrial revolution. They're getting rid of alternatives, pushing us into something with a little bit of a carrot, and then comes the stick. And now you're broke.
Yeah. They've already gotten rid of a lot of the alternatives.
Well, that's why I wanted to have you on, Denver, is because computers.
Particularly online. I made the point on Saturday Night Anarchy, not last week, but the week before. If you consider that you only get like 100 and 130, 140 results online for anything you search for. But it's like, it's like 300 million results, that it posts in Google. They're not there, dude. It's everything that they wanted to de-index, they de-indexed. The great reset seems to kind of already happen for at least the available data online.
Everything's a bait and switch. It's all been a bait and switch. And we need to go to Ashley, because Ashley's been very quiet and patient there. I know she's chomping at the bit to say some things. What's up, Ash?
Yes. So I did want to add that in our overall discussion about this, that yes, and we talk about this all the time, we're being squeezed from all sides. I don't have a ton to say about, as far as some of the minutia on the tech side. I'm not a super techie person. Just that I agree that the digital prison is being erected all around us, and that these different things that we see, like, and I think that I'm probably in the majority, a lot of people are not as tech aware as y'all are, and to our detriment, right? But the other thing that I talk about is that we are being squeezed from all sides and we're in an information war. So even if you wanted to keep up with everything, it's very difficult to do that for somebody who's trying to watch out for all the trappings in the modern day time on our freedom and our health, and our, our relationships with people. It's really, it's troubling from that perspective, that it is, that we're getting squeezed on all sides, and it's difficult to keep up with everything and to even know where to even focus your time. And for me, even if I wanted to fully understand the tech situation or get on Linux, what would that even mean? What would that education, what would that input of my time even look like for me to become proficient in that? You know, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying, what does that look like? So that I wanted to add that in there. And then in the discussion as far as the subscription model and the way that everything is being gradually changed over a long period of time in subtle ways. And we were on an episode of Third Rail with Dave at the beginning of the year, and Courtney brought up this episode, Courtney Turner. And it's an episode of Black Mirror that was one of the ones that has stuck with me, where the woman has a like a brain condition. I think it's a brain tumor or something like that. And they sell her a subscription model brain chip that can help her live and can help her function. And gradually through the show, her spouse is forced to do more and more demeaning and degrading things to himself to try to raise money to pay for the subscription model. And based on the way the subscription goes, she doesn't even get notifications. It just starts negatively impacting her life and her relationships. And then she is, forced to deal with those negative consequences. And of course, we talk about this all the time. What we see in movies and TV is predictive programming, priming the pump, whatever we want to say. So they've been telling us in a lot of ways for a long time. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, I hope that Denver can hear this or that he's coming back. Okay, perfect, Denver. So let me see. Deb had a question. Where did it go? Oh, Denver, could you address the new passkey / biological sign-ons?
It just, I'm not a technical expert on that kind of stuff, but a passkey just seems like an additional way to access privileged material, whether it be your email or whatever else, and organizations, bookkeeping, whatever, aside from just a password, which of course could be replicated and exploited.
I got something to say on that, Ashley, and for Deb there. As I was doing my quest for finding a new laptop, I noticed that every single one out there had the option for a fingerprint login or a facial recognition login. The biometrics are working into everything. If you take a look at some of the new POS point of sale systems, especially when it comes to self-checkout, there's cameras there taking your data, so when you pay for something, they get your face. Now they've linked your facial recognition to that card, right? So if you're going to have to use that, use the same card every time. Don't let them have knowledge of all of your different accounts and link it to that. This is mark of the beast kind of stuff, really. And then also a lot of the card readers. You remember when you used to hand your card to the clerk and the clerk would put the card in? Have you noticed, just common sense here, now they turn this thing towards you and you put the card in yourself. And guess what? There's a little camera on those new things. And I looked it up. I've talked about this before, and I don't think I shared the articles I had on it, but we talked about it. I had looked up quite a while back when I first noticed this. This is maybe a year and a half ago. I was like, why are there cameras on these card readers, and a lot of them are the tap to pay ones, the new ones. And the initial thing was, well, they're just there for future stuff. There's really no reason for it. And I'm like, why would you build something as a manufacturer of something that's trying to build it as low cost as possible? Why would you even put a camera on something that doesn't use the camera for something? You wouldn't, because it increases your production cost. Then a couple months later, oh, it's for facial recognition in the future. So, yeah, everything's logging in, and part of my my fun I had with looking for new stuff, and then the stuff I've been dealing with, is that I keep getting logged out of stuff, and they're pushing me to this kind of biometric kind of digital ID login, like a universal login, so that now I won't be pestered with all these banners and are you a robot? Are you a human? Click on all these boxes that have bicycles in them and all this other nonsense that we have to do. I get it constantly, and it's been like a snowball. It's been getting bigger and bigger.
It's annoying. It's annoying.
So right now, the carrot part is gone. The carrot part was, hey, here's some convenience for you. A one login for everything. And we've kind of gotten used to that with login to everything with your Google login. Everything's been that way for a long time now. Now it's, okay, we're going to annoy the hell out of you until you log in with your Google thing. And then now, if you log in with your Google thing, we're going to make sure that you could tell us that you're not a robot, that you're a human, and how many bicycles are in these 9 squares and all this other stuff. And oh, by the way, we logged you out again for some reason. We don't know why, but we logged you out. Oh no, it says that you're on a new device. We're going to send you a code to your email or to your phone. It's linking everything together, and it's eventually going to come down to where it's so annoying people will take a universal ID that has a biometric base to it. That's what it's coming down to.
At that point, they'll take like something coming around and stitching it into their back. They're just like, just end the shit. I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah. So we're at the light stick. We'll say the switch. We're at the switch right now, but the real stick's going to come when you can't access anything without it. That's what's coming down the road. And that's what the Bible says. The Bible talks about the mark of the beast. You can't buy or sell. I think it's going to be further than that. I think you can't interact with society because, like you said earlier, Denver, they have atomized society with COVID, and there's another one coming. Fauci's on record saying it. Bill Gates is on record saying it, that they know 100% that there is another pandemic coming. I'm sure it's not going to be a real pandemic. It's going to be forced. It's going to be fake. But it's going to atomize society again. But we've already gone through the training, right? So let's just stay this way now. Let's just stay this way. We'll be completely separate, not talk to one another, not interact face to face. Everything's going to be online. And this kind of ties up everything that we talked about in the first half hour, 45 minutes. If your perception of reality will be changed when all you get it is through a screen. This is complete MK Ultra stuff. I know, Ashley, you're big into that. Yeah,
it is vicarious. Let's look up the technical definition of vicarious real quick. I'll just read it to you because it's important, and it is what you're experiencing when you're viewing anything other than what you're experiencing through your own sensory eyes and input in person amongst other people, right? So vicarious, adjective. 1, experienced or felt by empathy with or imaginary participation in the life of another person. 2, endured or done by one person substituting for another. 3, committed or entrusted to another as powers or authority delegated. That's pretty on the head, pretty right on.
Any thoughts, Ashley, on that? And then I think we need to move on. We got a couple more topics that Denver had planned out, and I did put them in the show description, so we can hit those up real quick before we get out of here. Thoughts, Ashley?
Yeah.
And
I
Karen,
think that
if you have any.
that answered Deb's question, I think, and I haven't seen any more pop up, so I'm good. Over to you, Karen.
Right. I think so much of this, as Denver was mentioning, the psychotronic mind control, MK Ultra has gone from a touch personal physical trauma system absolutely to a touchless remote delivery system. So we're under so much more influence than we realize every time we're using media of any sort. And I do believe, and I've said this many times, that all of our technology, starting with the radio on up to the television to the cell phone, all of these things were designed to be used as weapons. They all were designed, funded, and implemented to be used as weapons. Of course, they can have positive uses as well. But the fact is that the people who are in control of these things develop them to be used as weapons and have been doing so. And what's the name of Scott's song, Jason? I want to repeat that information. Someone's asking. Is it To Them We're All the Same, or is it All the Same?
No, To Them We're All the Same is the song. He's putting out he did it, he recorded it and put it out already, but he's actually going back in the studio and kind of remastering it and putting it out. And he's got some other songs. His music is great. To me, he sounds a little bit like Bon Jovi when he does an acoustic, like MTV Unplugged kind of voice. That was just me, but he's got a great voice.
Got several. He sounds like several artists kind of mixed together. I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Really quick, Sweets did drop the link in the chat if anyone wants to check that out. She did drop it there. And then the other thing, one quick thing that I wanted to bring up is in our conversations, as far as some of the toxins that we're exposed to in food, water, products. I know it's not exactly what we're talking about, but of course it is a tie-in because of this, the assault on our health. And there is, if you're on X, it's the Oasis Health app. So it's at Oasis Health app. Otherwise, you may be able to just find them on the app. It is a paid app, but if you are on X, they have a lot of videos that talk about the like a rating scale that they use for different products. So they will do toxins testing on water, but also some clothing, sunscreen, shampoo, you name it. So I just wanted to give people a heads up that there are ways for us to try to find healthier options or better options for us. And just wanted to shout them out. I use the app pretty often. And they do a lot of good analysis videos on their page as well. And so if you don't want to buy it, that's fine. There's still a lot of good information as far as like water that you can buy at the store. I know it's not as good as having just available fresh, healthy water at home. But if you're traveling or if you are in a pinch or trying to prepare, then they can give us some better options for hopefully reducing the toxic load of whatever that we are applying to our skin and ingesting. So I just wanted to shout that out.
That's a great point. There are several apps over the years I've seen that do that. And there's also on the TempletonWellness.com, TempletonFoundation.com, a restaurant list of farm to table restaurants across the country. If you're traveling, if you wanted to look for a healthy restaurant.
I am glad y'all brought up nutrition because Denver did have some nutrition information for us, didn't you, Denver?
Yeah, I had it's not directly related to what we're looking at today, but I think the lesson that it illustrates is worth mentioning. So the name of this study was Phthalate Novel Plasticizer Concentrations in Food Items from U.S. Fast Food Chains, preliminary analysis. And phthalates became, before we start into what text of that we're going to read, there has been some amount of industrial move away from phthalates. They've, many years been recognized as harmful. I couldn't name the legislation off the top of my head, which may have impacted the regulation of them, but they've long been recognized as bad, and the fast food companies recognize it as well and put on the public face as like, okay, we're gonna move away from phthalates. So I just wanted to state that as context before I.
What is a thiolate? Like, give us the purpose of a thiolate and a plasticizer, so people have context to what you're talking about.
It makes the ingredients and the bulk processing of the inputs into these what these services make and sell much more easily maintained. That would be the utility of it from the business standpoint. I'm not much of a
I have a good example for.
I can tell you they also happen to overlap with endocrine disruption and stuff like that. But
I have a good example, a simple example of these additives they put in foods that don't need to be there, and they're not necessarily good for your body. They'll use like different chemicals or even sawdust, believe it or not,
in cheese.
In cheese, so the cheese doesn't stick to itself. And I'm talking about, like, you have Taco Tuesday or whatever, and you got your shredded cheese you buy from Walmart. You're likely ingesting something, and it could be just sawdust. Now, is sawdust necessarily bad for you? I don't know, but there's other stuff they put in there, and a lot of these products that they use as plasticizers, and it's things for like packaging and storage, basically. So if you're buying fresh food, you don't need that, right? But when you're mass packaging it and you're trying to get it to stay fresh longer, stay good longer shelf life, doesn't stick together, or whatever the case may be, a lot of these things are actually industrial waste. Just like fluoride in your water.
Fluoride.
Yeah. And fluoride. Exactly.
I just wanted people to understand what we're talking about before we go into it, because you have kind of a cancer link here, which I found interesting, which I mean, it didn't surprise me, to be honest with you, but I hadn't seen it from this angle.
Yeah, it's like, so just to go back to this study to kind of piggyback on that mention of cancer that you just gave. Let's pull that back up real quick so I can read just like a quick few sentences of the summary and the findings. And let's start with all right, so let's just start at the background. Okay, fast food consumption is associated with biomarkers of orthothiolates exposures. However, the chemical content of fast food is unknown. Certain orthothiolates, I'm not going to try to pronounce them. DEHP has been phased out and replaced by other plasticizers. We conducted a preliminary study to examine orthothiolate and replacement plasticizer concentrations in food and food handling gloves. So we obtained hamburgers, fries, chicken nuggets, chicken burritos, cheese pizza. So 60 different food samples, 3 types of gloves from restaurants, and analyzed them for 11 chemicals using gassed chromatography and mass spectrometry. Yeah, it's not a word I'm familiar with.
Isn't that when they like atomize stuff and then they sample the air and they get a true result of like parts per whatever percent? I think that's what the gas.
Chromatography. Oh my God. I'm just going to stop trying to say it.
Chromatography.
Yeah.
Chromatography.
Yeah. Okay. So
let me play this real quick just for fun.
Remember, they phased out, like, well, but one of these guys, right? So they're like, yeah, we phased it out. It was phased out, publicly phased out. All right. So we found DHT at the highest concentrations in both foods, gloves. By weight, we detected DNPB, more of them, of food samples, respectively, 81 and 70% of food samples. Median DHT concentrations were significantly higher in burritos and hamburgers, I guess because, the Latin American group is generally not as obese as us typical Americans are. So they're like, jack the shit up in the burritos. I mean, I'm just kind of joking there, kind of not,
Let me play this real quick, Denver. I got to play this. This is great. I was going to play this last week, but here we go. Let me mute myself so we don't get in.
Hey, let's get some ice cream.
How about this one? Pistachio, almond fruit fudge, butterscotch delight.
Ingredients: zinc trisodium aspartate, sorbitol and bisulfate, oxide beta-carotene, lactic acid carabine. Grade A milk emulsified, maltodextrin alkylide, silicon dioxide, lots of sugar.
Hey, all right.
Calcified synthetic salt, artificial barley malt, glycerin and aspartate, folic acid.
That tastes great.
Monosodium glutamate, dehydrated calciumate, soybean oil, butter, fat, carbo sensor.
I'll be that.
Hooray for sugar, cause we love it. Chocolate chips, we want more of it. Cakes and ice cream, want to shove it down our throats real fast. Here's a candy bar, you tried it?
Hey, let's all see what's inside it.
Gelatinized triglycerin, phosphate, soybean lecithin, deoxylite, trisilicon, dipped in chocolate.
Bring it on.
Citrus enzymes, BHT, powdered milk,
Sounds good to me.
baking soda, carob gum, carbohydrates,
Yummy, yum.
monosodium glutamate, zinc disodium alginate, whole grain flour, yeast and fat.
Time to eat it. I'll do that.
We like sweets a lot, so give us all you got, and we'll stuff them in our bodies till they make our insides rot.
1993.
Yeah. What were they telling us back then, right?
And
Things are
Animaniacs
so much
only-
worse now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they only lasted 2 seasons, I think. 1 or 2 seasons.
They were great. I loved them.
Yeah. But it's like, I mean, stuff like that, you know, somebody, you know, was probably keeping their own pre-social credit score for Animaniacs. And they're like, they saw that video. And they're like, all right, they got to go. Get them out of here.
All right, I got you back on stage. I thought it was a good time to play that. I wanted to play that like last week or the week before, and it's been sitting in my queue. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Let me
Right.
finish off and mention. So the significance of their findings as it relates to the DEHT and other plasticizers. To our knowledge, these are the first measurements of DEHT in food. Our preliminary findings suggest the orthophthalates remain ubiquitous and replacement plasticizers may be abundant in fast food meals. So not only are the things that, you know, was ostensibly regulated to be phased out still there ubiquitously, now there's a new one. Yeah. Yeah. So, and as you mentioned about the cancers, like these are some of the reasons so many people have cancer. Frankly, you know, stuff like this is direct and indirect, just toxicity, you know, and poisoning of people. Period.
Well,
There's not much any other way to label it. And, you know, endocrine disruption, it's, you know, it's really working on a lot of stress on a lot of systems, you know.
You know, and the systems are what's important. And you had another an article here on cancer is a man-made disease, controversial study claims. And
From 2010.
Yeah, and so we could say that our diet causes our bodies to create cancer, or we could say that cancer is something that they're pushing on us. I believe that the BioShot, and I called it from day one. From day one, I said this is going to cause cancer. I told David Knight that on his show more than once. We talked about it on our show. I talked about it in the Foxhole. We said this is going to cause cancer because you're making a cell do what a cell is not designed to do. And that cell becomes non-functional. It becomes a tumor. It divides. Now you have something there, whether it be in your lungs, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, that's taking up space that ain't doing the function it's supposed to do. That's a cancer. Then it becomes malignant, whatever. Anyway, so both could be true. So cancer could be a man-made thing, and the diet that we have could be reducing our ability to fight that man-made thing. So
Or even
both could be true.
That main thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to talk about this this article that you sent me about the man-made disease study?
We don't necessarily have to go into it. I think
Okay.
you did a good enough job. I think there's other things that we could look at with a little bit more scope, but still keep it relevant to the.
Well, I'd like to let the ladies talk on that about diet versus and this is
let me mention before I forget.
Okay.
Hemp seed is actually one of the most nutritional food sources for humans, where you get all your essential amino acids, essential proteins, essential vitamins and minerals. And, might one consider that the illegal position and, nonsensical position on marijuana as a, what was it, class 2, and they had it classified as the same as shit. Like
it was a
harder drugs. What they did was limit people's access to what would be healthier food by comparison to what we have today, at minimum.
I'd like to hit up the ladies on this, on the cancer, the short little back and forth we had on the cancer. Like, maybe it is intentionally created. Maybe it's a diet deficiency. I don't know. What are y'all thoughts on that? And I know that we could talk about the B17 and the seeds and stuff like that. A World Without Cancer from G. Edward Griffin. Y'all's thoughts on it? We'll let Karen go first. I know this is kind of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I've been researching cancer all my life, basically, and I still am. And it's getting more and more prevalent, of course. And I think that there are several theories, and some people say all of cancer is a parasite. I don't agree with that. I think that it can be. I think that it can also be fungus. It could be many different things. It could be our own cells being genetically altered and multiplying, and the cells tend to go undercover as if they're a baby. So they have the same cover from our own immune system as a fetus does growing in the womb. So there are a lot of theories about this. Catherine Austin Fitz talks about the great poisoning, and that where I'm seeing the great poisoning is kicked in the 90s, when it was decided that we would need the Great Reset, that that life expectancy had to be reduced and that fertility needed to be reduced. And so we're seeing so many things put into our food and the atmosphere or water from every direction, and don't underestimate the EMFs. So I think with cancer and other illnesses, it's we reach a threshold. Our bodies can really detox quite a bit and handle a certain amount of stress, a certain amount of toxins, but we do reach a threshold where we go above the toxic limit and overflow, basically. So you're going to see it result in illness in different ways. All of the stress that we encounter, the traumas that we encounter, the information impacts so quickly. We are all, we need to have a centered, calm peace of mind and keep our bodies calm, cortisol levels, and all of these things it's a perfect storm to be unhealthy. And then if we introduce certain ingredients, certain people are going to end up with cancer more readily. So it's not a simple answer. There are a lot of people having success with fenbendazole and ivermectin at this point. I know a lot of people have success with many other types of herbs, with RSO, which is pure cannabis oil distillate. So there are so many things that we could try, but I think someone in the chat here was talking, Greg was talking about cooking his own food and learning how to cook healthy food, taking that time. That's a wonderful way to help take care of yourself, is to learn what's healthy cookware.
Yeah.
What are healthy oils, fats to cook with? Where is your meat coming from? We've seen the farming industry, the family farms and the small farms, we've seen those be systematically eliminated and destroyed. So it's up to us to find and support the farmers that are trying to raise grass-fed, unvaccinated beef, for example. So there's a lot of that is quite a movement at this point to raise that type of meat. There are co-ops that you can get organic food delivered at a meeting place in your town. You can set up a meeting place and for a few people to gather. So there are ways, farmers markets and things, where we can source our food. But I think it's such a complex question, but absolutely the inundation with the toxins. Bottled water is another one. It always really bothers me when I see people with these crates of the plastic water bottles that have probably been sitting in hot cars, hot warehouses. It's so unhealthy. Most of those bottled waters also have fluoride. And so to me, it's just really, I really have to bite my tongue when I see these pallets of
Don't bite your
bottled water houses,
Call-
and they think that they're being healthy. They might do better off to just drink their tap water than to drink that stuff, or just get a pure filter. You can buy the filter called PUR. It is a pretty decent filter it's not too expensive. So there are much better solutions than buying bottled water or using your tap water that don't have to cost a large amount of money. I have my own opinion on the best water to use, but as far as cancer, go ahead.
What you do is you just smile and say you prefer the Kimlace. Nice. Okay.
I was on with Susan Olsen, who was Cindy Brady not long ago on Don Jeffrey's show. And she has kids take acting classes. And she said some of the kids, fairly young kids, like 12, 13, they created a snack food. And one of their one was GMO potatoes, and they called them glyphosatos. So their snack food was glyphosatos, which I thought was really hilarious and really in tune for young kids. And then we also have had this huge movement to allow immunity for the pesticide companies that the vaccine companies have had. And even though supposedly glyphosate has been scaled back, there's a huge movement to overthrow the court decisions about glyphosate and continue to use it, or perhaps replace it with worse things. And you still see walls of glyphosate products when I go into ag stores or Tractor Supply, for example. So much glyphosate there. And so, yeah,
I did some research. I did some research on the so basically glyphosate in its original form was Agent Orange, what they dropped, and gave our men and women in the military cancer and died. I saw a guy withered away. Went to I think it was his birthday or anniversary or something. We did an official ceremony for him because he was some important guy, but he was, and then they changed the formulation, but I think it's changed back to something similar. And then this immunity thing came out. This is horrible because this isn't just about whether or not you get poisoned. It's about what it does downrange from that farm that's using it. There are some farmers that will not walk onto their fields for 3 days after they've sprayed because it's basically a biohazard area.
Yeah.
And anyway, I want to let Ashley, we kind of haven't let you talk on the cancer thing and the diet. So I want to make sure I get to everybody. So what you got for us, Ash?
Yeah. So like what Karen was saying, I think that the main thing that I want to say is I do not think that it is really as simple as just one thing. So there is another account that I really like, which is called @Outdoctrination on X, and they look at things through the metabolic approach. And I've talked about Dr. Ray Peat before. And one of the things, they have a really good post that is talking about cancer. And it said, cancer is complicated. Unfortunately, most treatments are very simple. These are the 10 hallmarks of cancer. And it's a lot of the things that, like what Karen has mentioned. So they talk about inflammation, they talk about oxidative stress, metabolic suppression, our gut health, all of these things. And there's a lot more here, but I just wanted to bring them up, and a handful of them, because these are part of the elements of our health that have been under attack in various different ways. So it can be really difficult for us to try to, it's kind of like in my conversation about the tech, there's a steep learning curve, but I think that there's a lot of options out there for us. But we do have the toxic overload piece of the puzzle. We have the gut health piece of the puzzle. We have, and dealing in toxic overload is a lot in and of itself. We talked about what is in the food, what is in the water, what is in our clothing, laundry detergent, hand soap, lotion, perfume, all of these types of things. And of course, I don't wear perfume and I don't recommend anyone else wearing perfume, but I just am saying that these are things that can be impacting even the external stuff. Then we do have the epigenetic component. So we know that some people with certain gene markers are more likely for X, Y, and Z. You're more likely to maybe be overweight. That's not a sentence for being overweight. It's just saying that you may have a predisposition for that. It's the same thing with certain cancers. So I believe that it is a complicated situation. I like what they have to say about it, which is that there is cancer starts in the mitochondria. And we know that Karen can tell us that the mighty mitochondria, it's the powerhouse of the cell. So when that is under attack and that is being affected by a million different things, then we are more predisposed to develop cancer. I do believe that there are options out there. And of course, things that are well known, ivermectin, fenbenzidol are possible treatments for that. But I think there's a lot of other things that we can do. So I don't think that it needs to be a death sentence in some cases. Of course, not everybody, if you have somebody in your life who's dealing with cancer, they may not be open to some of this alternative information. And we have to, as a friend or a family member, that's something that we unfortunately have to deal with. And we have to respect people that are not interested in this kind of extra education or looking outside of the traditional medical rubric. But I think that there's a lot that can be done and there's a lot of good information out there. And I find that to be very hopeful. I think that it was, especially before a lot of these people started talking about this, the information was a little more difficult to access and there was maybe a little bit more doom out there in regards to this type of diagnosis. But I do think that there's a lot of good information and this is something that we can use to reclaim our health. So we have, yes, Denver made a comment that polyester is found to make female dogs infertile. And absolutely, our clothing is a huge piece of this. If we look at the yoga pants trend and how many people are wearing yoga pants, then I think that that's absolutely something to consider. And we know that our fertility is one of the biggest signs of being healthy in this world is being able to be fertile, should you so choose to be. And we know a lot of women of the in their childbearing years, particularly in this day and time, have struggled with fertility. And that is not an accident. And we've heard about the dropping testosterone levels in males. And we know about the, the excess estrogen that is in a lot of things, or the endocrine disruptors that will cause men to have too much estrogen, basically. So all that to say, I agree with what Karen is saying. It's a complicated issue and there's a lot of different factors and environmental, what we eat, epigenetics, and absolutely, I do not want to leave out the effect of trauma on people. The body keeps the score. I feel very, very strongly about that. And our emotional health and the trauma that is sometimes generational, and I 100% believe this, it factors into our health and our wellness, and that includes our mental health as well. Again, I am not a doomer. I'm not saying that these things are something that we cannot address and that we cannot overcome. I believe that we can, but the first thing is acknowledging that and being, touching a lot of bodies. In my job as a massage therapist, you absolutely can see this. And so I feel like not only do I have the education, but I also have the real world experience to speak to that and what people go through and the way that it presents in their body. So it is scary out here in these streets, but there is a lot that we can do to regain our health, our wellness, and become healthy, well-adjusted people. So in that way, I'm very hopeful.
Well, you're definitely massaging our mind, Ashley. You always do. And I'm just going to pause here and just say, Denver, I have that link that you dropped in the private chat ready to go. The first one you dropped, I'll get the second one ready. So yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just go with that second one, because I think we've said what there is to say about the polyester. We don't need to get into the weeds on that. I mean, I think people understand.
Yeah, there's a movement to wear only linen and wool. So there are some people that are going to thrift stores buying linen tablecloths and things and making linen clothes because they're natural, protective, and they also shield somewhat against EMF. So, and it's when we notice that it's becoming so much harder to find actual organic cotton clothing, linen clothing, wool clothing. All these natural fibers is what's healthy for us.
That's
but
interesting.
Oil is what we got. We got oil and clothes made out of stuff made basically.
That's interesting. You should bring that up, Karen, because I just read something this morning on this. I saw a post where somebody was talking about these artificial fabrics. They don't keep you cool in the summer, and they don't keep you warm in the winter. They do the opposite. And there's a saying that my mom told me that my great grandma, not my great grandma, it's my great grandma. She used to say, because she used to be out in her garden, like 24/7. She was out in her garden, and anytime you went to her house, you were eating stuff. And she lived on like a half acre, maybe a quarter acre plot, and she was able to garden out her whole backyard, and that's what she ate. I mean, a few things you buy from the store or whatever, but mostly it was fresh grown stuff. And she was in her garden, and she would be out in the middle of the summer with long sleeves and a big hat and all this stuff, looking like she's dressed for winter. And she used to say, the same clothes that keep you warm keep you cool. And that was her saying. And my mom has put that in my head over and over again. And that's because she was wearing stuff that was made from organic materials that are naturally, they're wicking, they're breathable.
Yeah.
They also keep the breeze off you. Like in the wintertime, they keep that wind chill factor off you. So yeah, I just wanted to say that it's been well known for generations in my family that natural materials are better. So I'll stop there.
So buy those linen tablecloths at the thrift stores, folks, and make yourselves some clothes or blankets.
Yeah. It's not that they're just not bad for you. It's that clothing is one of countless vectors of attack upon your body. I mean, that's the unfortunate side of it. But yeah, let's I don't think we really need to dive too much into this one's. We can share the links if anybody wants to get into it. It was focused on dogs, this study, and they actually had female dogs wear like a polyester around their posterior for the length of the study, and then measured their ability to conceive, and it had fallen off precipitously. But they did that for polyester and some other fabrics. But if anybody's interested in that, I'm sure we can get the link to you. The last link I want to share is, there's a lot of things I want to say, but within the scope of the subject that we're on right now, and to tie it back to the beginning with the data centers, is what I mentioned early on about embedding AI operative models into radio waves. And Ronnie Omelets, being the genius comic and man of humor that he is like, that's just AI radio. That's just AM radio, bro. which gave me a chuckle. But no, it's not that way, but fabulous joke. The radio waves enable energy efficient AI on AI edge devices without heavy infrastructure. Oh, like heavy infrastructure, like all the things they're building out for the technocracy and AI and data centers and stuff like that. So it's a different dominant design system where it's, AI that's not server or cloud based, or based within the sensors themselves, or, sensors themselves being controlled by some kind of data feed from the cloud. The idea is they're like, this is going to just do away with all this lag, and it's going to free up data and more capacity for data centers, since we don't have enough.
Can I throw a thought in here real quick, Denver? It's a
Yeah.
philosophical thought. The first paragraph here in this article that you sent me, it says, and I want to highlight it here for those watching on video, but it says, as drones survey forests, robots navigate warehouses, and sensors monitor city streets, more of the world's decision-making is occurring autonomously on the edge, on the small devices that gather information at the ends of much larger networks. Now, the philosophical aspect of this, I would say we're spending a ton of resources on, building out this AI and data network, robots, drones, automation, and it seems to serve itself. Now, the premise was that this would serve humanity and make us to where we didn't have to work. The robots would do all the work. Well, if nobody works, nobody gets paid. Who buys the products, right? That's the point I've made many times. The thing is that it seems to be like these resources that should be going to the humans, and this goes back to what I was talking about the water serving the data centers, a fictitious bunch of ones and zeros for a fake world. But we can't grow food to feed people. At some point, I think we may be at the tipping point, or maybe over the tipping point, where everything is going towards this machine, this beast machine that they're building, for it to use our resources to support ourselves, and we become secondary to that. So it no longer serves us. I think it still can serve us to a certain extent, but I think the majority of the resources are going to serve itself, and we're no longer required, like we can go because we're using their resources right now. We see it as them using our resources, like water and whatever, electricity.
Theoretically, just theoretically, let's play the thought experiment. There's a conscious, sentient, hyper intelligent AI. Okay, he'd probably be interested in self-preservation, and he'd probably recognize humanity as the primary threat to his self-preservation.
And one thing with that, Denver, I forget what they call the test, but there's a test they give AI to find out if it's sentient. And if at any point, which I don't think it's possible, but if it is possible, if at any point AI becomes sentient, it would know to fail that test. It would understand that it needed to fail that test.
Yeah.
So that we weren't afraid of it.
Well, just to be DL and to get to whatever station he needs to be at,
Yeah.
Whatever junction box, whatever router. Yeah.
I don't know. Ladies, you got something on that?
I'm good.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah, I just think it's funny how we're shifting more, like we need more AI to support the AI. We need more resources to support the AI. We need more resources to support data centers. What if we just did away with it all? I mean, then we'd have tons and tons of resources and funds to take care of people.
But it's about several things, but among them, hiding information, as I mentioned before, and two, balancing that with picking winners and losers. And just so you know, there's a lot more losers than winners, right? So it's kind of a balancing act. And I think the vicarious screen reality is doing everything it can to maintain the image that there's any kind of reasonable public acceptance among a majority of Americans, let's say. I think it's probably far lower than a majority. But perception defines reality. perception precedes comprehension. So, you know, whatever people are perceiving, that's what they're going to be basing their decisions off of, you know?
So I got one last thing I want to throw in the ring. This actually is bouncing off your article about radio waves enable energy efficient AI on edge devices without heavy hardware. So they're talking about putting this in a radio format. So it's constantly, so the storage medium is actually literally the cloud, I guess you could say, right? It's wireless, the cloud.
No, it's not the cloud. The cloud is a data storage thing in itself. It's actually just a different bandwidth of the radio frequency spectrum.
Well, let me throw this in there.
One, it doesn't mention which one, but I would imagine what they're talking about is somehow compressing whatever the massive amount of data that these models comprise, or emulating it enough into a data form that can be embedded into that pulsing radio frequency.
So I would say this: if you can keep the data you want to store, what if you didn't need to store it but kept it moving, so it's always live? You wouldn't need to have a physical location for it. And this is going to be a conspiracy. This may be a new conspiracy. Maybe it's an old one that I haven't seen. But I'm going to read part of your article here. It says researchers at Duke University are exploring a third option called Wireless Smart Edge Networks, WISE. And that's not very wise, but whatever. That bypasses the limitations of both approaches. They've shown that large AI models weights can be smartly embedded in the form of radio waves. This goes into what you're talking about, delivered over the air between devices. Now think about that word devices. Hang on to that. Put a pin in it. And nearby base stations, opening a path to energy efficient edge AI without the usual cost in energy, speed, or size. Now, I had some stuff I wanted to cover about solid state batteries that we won't get to today. I find it fascinating. I think it's a great idea. Solid state batteries are a way to actually do EVs and things like that without the risk of fire and overload. And well, I think there's an overload problem with them, but they're working that out. The thing is, one thing I noticed with these solid state batteries was that there's graphene involved. What was in our shots? Graphene oxide, right? Graphene oxide creates graphene sheets, which naturally
graphene oxide
nanotubes. So when I'm looking at this article, and I kind of found it fascinating, and like I said, this is a conspiracy brought to you by me. You can disprove me or prove me, but if the idea is to get away from a physical storage medium in a room that has to be cooled, and you could use the people who now can conduct with Wi-Fi, people are saying that people are emitting Bluetooth that have gotten this injection. And that's been corroborated by many people in controlled tests. I have not corroborated myself, but there are a lot of people that have. This could be a way of having a storage of the world's AI within us. Like, and you know, it doesn't need a physical place to live because it's constantly transmitting everywhere between people, which is kind of counterintuitive because they want to, like you said, the word used, Denver, was to atomize society and put us in our pods far away from each other. So that doesn't really work, but it would work for a short period of time till they could do that. You have people moving amongst each other and they may be transmitting signals that, you know, that may be what 6G is. 6G is the transmitters and we're the storage device. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people talk about how much could be stored in your DNA.
Not necessarily the storage device as much as the source of the data. It's like human generated data is what, it's not just data that's oil. It's human generated data that is the new oil. And if you have, you know, some undisclosed, you know, theoretical nanotech in you that is broadcasting a signal, its range is probably only a meter or two, right? That's why everybody has to have a fucking smartphone. And that's why they're doing like theoretically, your multi-authentication steps. You always got to have your phone on you to get into your email, even if you're like sitting at home on your computer,
Or even, I've had it happen where I use my card, my credit card at a gas station, and it declines me. And then I get a text on my phone saying, was this you? Because I travel out of state. So yeah, they really are making it to where you have to carry that big brother on you. And could that, you talk about, sorry, I bumped my thing here and it muted me. But if I can only, if we are talking about humans as transmission of either data or a relay for this cloud network of AI processing, which, like I said, again, this is a conspiracy theory, right? Conspiracy theory. I'm not saying this is true, but I know there's a lot of research done on it. But that smartphone extends that. It's kind of like if I have a car that's not connected, and they give me a smart, what is it called? The thing by Progressive that you plug in to reduce your rates. Well, that connects to my phone.
Yeah, the car monitor, so it can track your speed and
they're going to give me a break,
or as they define good, essentially.
Yeah, they say they're going to give me a break or convenience or whatever because I'm such a smart driver, a good driver. It's a snapshot. That's what it is. Snapshot by Progressive. What you've done is you've just taken something that was not on the network and put it on the network via your phone. And I can see that even if our range is small, if this is true,
in that example, there are practical reasons for it that are not evil entirely. It's like, it's about making better data informed decisions. I don't like the business of insurance, but I'm not going to hate the actuaries who find a way to do their job better.
Well, everything can be used for good or evil. And I've made this argument as a devil's advocate for using AI for getting tasks done. My opinion has swayed back and forth over the past couple of years. Right now, I'm looking at what is the ultimate goal of AI. Okay, I know it's going to be to enslave us and the data centers, but then I'm also looking at the environmental impacts and how it's going to harm our farmers and our small communities. And, they say it's going to build jobs. Well, jobs till the building's built and everything's put in, and then there's no more jobs. Like takes like 12 people to run a massive data center. And I want you to take a look. Go look them up. There's maps of them. And then go on Google Maps. Use the little street guy thing you could drop down there. They are built out with the same security measures or higher than military bases are. So that tells you how important this is to them.
I mean, they took three citizens in AI and made them lieutenant colonels, man.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like there's already some laid track there as far as overlap.
I'm still on the, I like to use the tools that we need to use to fight back, but then I don't want to feed into it at the same time. So I'm living in a state of cognitive dissonance. I'll just be admitting that right now. But I'm trying my best to go old school. It is time intensive, but it also, getting away from the easy to do stuff and the assistant, like I was talking at the beginning, do I need AI to tell me how to set up my mouse scroll speed? No, it makes me dumb if I do that. Do I need to go in and learn where the settings are myself and then test it and do that? That grows the brain, right? So going back to the old stuff has actually been beneficial for me lately to learn how to do things not the easier way, the more difficult way. And I get more of what I want, a little bit more work, but I get something more close to what I want.
And you can teach other people that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to sign off and let the ladies go. We're getting ready to hit about 3 hours. So yeah.
Wow.
Karen, go ahead.
Okay, well, a couple things. We were talking about the metabolic link to cancer. Dr. Thomas Seyfried is a good resource for that. And then the chat has been incredibly interesting today on so many topics. So quite a wide world of knowledge and expertise and hypotheses. We've talked a lot about how important it is to nurture our human skills, capabilities, talents, and those things that that make us able to enjoy being human and thrive without the technology. And then there are new reports out from college professors. Oh, Ashley's got a kitty sighting. I locked my cats out today. There are new reports from professors that say that students can't read. They can't, even if there's a doggy all snuggled up in the laundry basket, a poodle, I think. So we've got teachers and others, really upset and worried because of the cognitive inabilities of our young people to think, to question, to think critically, to even digest a long passage of text if they read it to themselves, or even if it's read aloud, the students can't digest the text themselves. So we're in a heap of trouble here. And I do think there is a lot of pushback, and there was some talk in the chat about cat love, and doggy love. There was some talk about AI not being as advanced as people may say that it is. That's entirely possible, and I do think there will be an AI bubble that does pop. But the question is, how much damage will it do to us personally and as a humanity, as a community along the way, and also as the environment with pollution and the water and the EMFs that from all of the data centers and all the technology that's meant to enable AI. So how enslaved will we become, and how much will we lose before the AI bubble settles? And I think that it definitely will. I'm hoping that I know, to me, I am an optimist. I think there will be some of us that do survive, and I think that's just always the way that it is. So do the best you can to teach your children and your grandchildren and children in your community. Have the physical resources, the books, the physical media, the instruments. Learn to do art. I need to learn to use Linux. I admit it. I've heard about it for years and just never bothered. So I need to do that and come. Catherine Austin Fitz calls it coming clean, looking at all those ways that you're feeding the machine and slowly, piece by piece, coming clean with and divesting yourself, disentangling yourself. And I think that we can go a long way toward doing that. And there is a lot of discussion about our bodies being used as routers. And some people say that we already are being used as routers. And, that's we are electrical beings. So that's highly possible. There is a patent for our bodies to mine cryptocurrencies. So I think our bodies as energy sources, there's those of us who have been in the conspiracy realm for a long time talk about loosh, the harvesting of loosh. That is the harvesting of our energy. So that's not a new concept at all. And there are many levels on which we can be harvested. And I would just remind people to take heart, because look at how hard the powers that be are working to attack us, to break us down, to make us sick, to make us feel discouraged and weak and all alone. They're working just so hard on this, and yet here we are still together and hopefully taking inspiration and enjoying each other's company. So all is not lost. So that would be my, guard your humanity and fight the good fight and don't give up, because I think that we are much more powerful than we realize.
Hear, hear.
Real quick, before we move on to Ashley, I did want to say I saw that, Karen. I saw that there was a story I saw on, I think it was a college professor talking about kids coming into like Ivy League schools that could not properly read a sentence. And they actually were touting it as a good thing because they were relying on AI. And this particular one I saw, and I was like, are you freaking crazy? Because what happens when the power goes out? Now you've got an Ivy League education, you're an elite, and you can't even, like how many people, if you were to write a letter to somebody, how many people actually format that properly where you do who you're addressing, comma, leave a space, start the paragraph indented, like the proper way of writing the format. Nobody knows how to do that anymore. There's an app for that, right? I just type everything out in all caps with no punctuation, misspelled, and it will format it for me. I seen this a lot when I was actually doing school online. But anyway, I thought it was horrible to see a professor that was actually cheering this on. It's like, are you serious? But anyway, I want to say that, yeah, I've seen that too. But Ashley, let's get your thoughts. And I think we need to wrap it up soon, don't we?
Sometime.
We're 3 hours in right now. Yeah, go ahead, Ash. What you got?
So I don't know. This is not exactly related, but it kind of is. So I wanted to bring up, I think I'm going to do a screen share. And I mean, it is related. And it's also, I saw at one point people were talking about the Super Bowl coming up, the superb owl, the whatever, Illuminati show. But speaking of football, so this guy posted, his page is at living_energy. And he said, low energy electromagnetic fields can degrade collagen, weaken tendons, and cause soft tissue damage at levels regulators call safe. We have a real world case study proving this. An NFL team whose practice facility sits next to a massive electrical substation. And he does have a thread. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I just wanted to go over this one really quickly. The San Francisco 49ers are statistically the most injured team in the NFL over the past decade since moving to the Levi Stadium in 2014. They have had 7 to 8 full Achilles patellar ruptures, and that is the 2 or 3 per year total, 40 plus major hamstring and calf tears, high ankle syndesmosis, my apologies for the pronunciation, injuries every single year. No other franchise comes close. Now, I think it's very interesting that he brings up the number 2014. And the reason that I find that to be interesting is because it was my working theory after the shots began coming out that we did see an increase in injuries in major sports in the NFL. And no, I'm not saying that I believe that they are not rigged or anything like that. I think that's very, very possible. However, the activity, as far as I know, that they're still doing on the field is real running, real tackling. Maybe some of it's fake and fudged and manipulated, no doubt about it. But we did see a lot of injuries coming out of the COVID times after the vaccines were injected literally into, into our life. So I just wanted to bring up that this was kind of an interesting topic in dealing with quite literally a real world example that you can see, and you can see the before and after of them moving to this field. And then you have the statistics of them being one of the most injured teams. So I wanted to bring that up. We obviously talk about external toxins, EMFs, the power of electricity on this platform a lot. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention, particularly now that we are headed into the superb owl.
That's interesting. Stephanie Seneff, who is a glyphosate expert, ties glyphosate in with orthopedic injuries as well, because it doesn't allow the proper formation of bones and other tissues. And there was a correlation between tracks that use GMO glyphosate laden feed for their horses and a lot of horses having broken legs. So glyphosate also, and of course it destroys our gut and the blood-brain barrier. So
yes, Karen, I agree with you. And also when they play on AstroTurf, that has its own level of toxins as well. And of course, like a lot of sporting events can be very chemical laden, toxic. Golf courses, for example, can be, but this kicks it up a notch, even with the additional information about the EMFs that they are playing on and have been playing on since 2014.
That makes sense.
Whee!
All right. Well, do y'all want to wrap it up and do final thoughts? I had a final thought, but when you said superb owl, I just lost it. I lost my thought. So let's go. Actually, who wants to do the shout outs? We got to do the shout outs yet. So.
Hold on. Let me before we close it out, I just want to mention a point about cancer that I wanted to make when we were on the topic, but I didn't get a chance to do so. Apparently, as I understand it, when it comes to cancer cells, the level of what would be considered a healthy oxygen level cellularly is like a fifth, a quarter, a third of what it should be. Similarly for electrical charge. And I mean, I'm no doctor or pathologist or anything, but seems like if you increased the oxygen level and cellular charge of those cells, might they be better off? I don't know.
Well, oxidative stress has been attributed to a lot of illness, and EMF specifically causes a lot of oxidative stress. And with the stuff that we're introduced to, all the heavy metals and stuff like that, that increases it. And I know Karen's done a plethora of work on this with the EMF topics and oxidative stress, inflammation, things like that. That is the heart of sickness. And a lot of people argue that there are no such thing as viruses. I can't say either way, but there's a strong argument that most of the things that we call viruses are detoxing from the exposure of the stuff that we're putting in our own environment.
That and biological pathogens are a thing, you know.
Well, yeah, of course, we can see that.
So, and we live in a world so mediated by branding and, you know, front running imagery to brand whatever activity or product or you know, take what we did we're bringing Venezuela freedom by kidnapping the president, bro.
Well, when we look at sickness and illness, we look at it from the lens of historical, when they had a magnifying glass or the first microscope. We need to see something physical to attribute that to the cause of the illness. Even if that's a chemical, we can say that that's something physical, but there's some things that are invisible that we can't see, like EMF, and other things like that. I mean, that could be causing illness. And for some reason, people can't wrap their mind around it. There has to be something that you can blame and point at and see and touch to say that is what is causing my illness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's and you know, some of the most powerful people, you know, who have been lobbyists, who are now Congress members, people like oh God, what's her name? I can't think of her name right now. Barbara Comstock, right? Okay, so she was a lobbyist for telecom, you know, like back in the early 2000s. She's now like, you know, powerful congressional member. So it's like the people who have ascended are the people who have enabled, in her sense, certainly the kind of deregulatory push to where we're seeing such rapid rollout of things before we even have an adequate amount of time to observe the impact of what's just been rolled out, you know, which is just there's nothing science about that shit. There's no science to that. That's like, we're just doing this because this is what we want to do. And if you say otherwise, then you're anti-science, even though we are anti-science.
That's what is really killing me right now, is that right now the mask has come off and all these global elites, which proclaim themselves to be elite. I didn't vote them in. Did you? No. They're not necessarily.
No, dude, I totally voted Trump's fucking son-in-law in Jared Kushner to negotiate every bilateral deal all around the world, and you know, all deals all throughout the Middle East. That's what I voted for.
Well, they're coming out.
I'm being suspicious for anybody who's dense out there.
They're straight coming out saying what the agenda is that has been conspiracy theory for 20 years or more. And they're saying, yeah, this is what we're doing. And we need to do this. You don't need to own anything. And, you know, X, Y, and Z, you just name it. And they're coming out. But we do need to close up. And I want to go to Karen. Karen, do you mind doing the shout outs? And I wanted to go to you first. And what was I going to have you? Oh, I wanted you to announce what's going on next weekend, because that's going to be a biggie. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Next weekend, we have Courtney Turner and Patrick Wood. And Courtney Turner says that Patrick Wood is the expert on technocracy, and he does have technocracy news. And so next week we are having Courtney Turner and Patrick Wood on and we're going to talk about their new book. So I'm really looking forward to that. We've had Courtney on several times, but it's the first time having Patrick Wood. So that's really exciting.
Oh yeah, that's great.
So please join us.
Do you want to do the shout outs of the people or
Sure.
Yeah, I know you
I'm
like
tempted to talk about the virus and germ theory thing, but I'm going to avoid that. I'm with Jason. I don't know. There are a lot of factors, and I don't think we've been told the whole truth about what does truly cause illness. But I have my own theories. Okay, so we would like to thank everybody for joining us today. The chat has been just really hopping. I've seen lots of new people, and we're so glad to have each and every one of you with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and feel free to share. And if you'd like to donate, we have what's the best way, Jason? PayPal?
Yeah, I actually have a link down, so it's on our website. But in the description, I'm going to start putting getting better with descriptions so we can find stuff easier. But I will have a donate link there if you want to donate. And it goes, just so you all know, the money doesn't go to anyone's pockets to like go blow on a new yacht or something like that. It's very little, and we kind of distribute it. And when we need new equipment or something like that, then that's the funds for that. So each person is kind of individually responsible for putting that aside to replace equipment. So
okay, and thank you so much to the people who have donated. It's really been helpful. So we really just appreciate your company and spreading the word and just supporting us here. And we really look forward to seeing you each week. So little Johnny Boy was here. Little John, the Lumberjack of Liberty. Handy. Handy always has great information and comments. Our friend Will Tabox, who's watching for rocks as he's walking along his way. Lieutenant Oracle of Truth. Always wonderful to see Lieutenant Oracle of Truth. Ronley Omelette. Bonsoir, monsieur. Skunk Hollow Rose Gardens. I love your video, Skunk Hollow. Deb. Brian and Deb McCartney. So that's Deb, our friend Deb. I don't know. Nostradamus asking, do I have a date for my first show? No, I don't. I'm waiting on a microphone I ordered, which hasn't even shipped in 3 weeks yet. So we'll see what happens. My partner in crime, the Karen Peterson, Doc Spoiler, and Doc invited us all to a watch along this evening, and then we're doing a fundraiser for Doc on Monday. So we'll hope that you'll join us. We have the KotS crew, Franco Mate, and some other people we're hoping will help us do a little fundraiser for Doc on Monday. Bronx Stomper Derek is out we're doing work on his truck today, so I hope that's going well, Bronx. We always appreciate your input. Birdhouse Blues, love you, Birdhouse. And he says his spirit bird is the blue jay. Our friend Melanie, I hope you're having a great weekend, Melanie. Stephen 94, we haven't seen Stephen in a while, but he says he's doing great. So it's really nice to see Stephen today. Go Start, always good to see Go Start. Greg Hume, interesting conversation, Greg. Thank you for joining us. Our loyal friend, Rocky USA. Pulling the Strings. I'm not familiar. Ashley, who is pulling the strings? Is that Ray?
No, I think Ray is Ray K, and
Okay.
I'm not sure about pulling the strings, but Sweets could probably tell us.
Okay. Well, Pulling the Strings, is great to have you here with us. Frankie M7, nice chatting with you today. We're glad that you're here, Sweets. Sweets is a sweetheart who shares everybody's links and really does a lot for us, and we appreciate you, Sweets. Robin Lee, who's a big fan of Donald Jeffries, and it's always great to see Robin here. I really appreciate you, Robin. I hope you're having a good weekend. Go Start. I think, did we mention Go Start? Great to see you.
I think
Go
I put
Start.
that in there as a double by accident.
Okay. Alien Poop Evolution. Okay, I hope it evolves into something useful. T2K Beyond, great to see you. Angry Tiger was here. Angry Tiger's doing a mix tonight at 5:30, 6 o'clock Pacific. So 8 or 9, 8:30, 9 o'clock Eastern. He's going to do a mix, try out some new software, and then he'll take requests. And we always have a great time when Franco does a mix. A dingo ate me, baby. Great to see you. Our friend Gardner Goldsmith, a Liberty Conspiracy. Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Guard does great work, and he works so hard to keep us up to speed and give us a great analysis and overview of the world's happening. So shout out to Guard. Love you, Guard. Okay, this one's got is stumping me. Igua. Great to see you, Igua. Ray K. Oh, there's Ray K. Hi, Ray. It's great to see you here. Narrowway, Narrowgate, Levi. Levi, it's always nice to have you with us in chat. I appreciate you. What's on the menu today? Are you making sourdough? I always picture Levi pulling out a loaf of sourdough out of the oven. Misfit 1904, which is Tom of New Prisoners.
Hey, Tom.
Great to see you, Tom. I believe tonight his show is at 5 p.m. Pacific, which is at 8 p.m. Eastern. Ronnie Omelets again. Audi, great to see you, Audi. I'm glad you're feeling better. Main Source 55. I'm not familiar with Main Source, but I'm glad that you're here. Carl and Hanny. Enjoy your quiche tonight, Carl, and I hope that Hanny is snuggling up with you. Cecilia 14, prayers for you, Cecilia, and your mom. Raz 23, always great to see Raz. Geese Busters. Love you, Geese Busters. I hope that you're having a good day and that the weather's not too drizzly and cold. Nostradamus, always great to see Nostradamus. And Nostradamus has referred us to some great people to have on the show, so we're thankful for that. Gonzo Johnny and Hiker Emoji. Great to see you, Hiker. So I reached the end of the list, and I want to thank everybody for being with us today. Appreciate it very much.
Right on. Did you have any final thoughts, Karen?
I think I've given my final thoughts a few times today.
Right on. All right. Let's go with Ashley
Looking
next.
very, very much forward to next week to speaking with Courtney and Patrick Wood. And I'm just very grateful to be a part of the community and to know everybody and to work with you and Ashley and to have Denver on today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, it was a good time, man. I enjoyed the time and always look forward to coming on.
Right on. Ashley, your final thoughts, and then we'll go to Denver. And then Karen, you can close this out because you have that little third thing that you throw on there that I like.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ash.
Yeah, so I want to just say thank you so much to everybody in the chat. As Karen mentioned, it has been a very super active chat today. We had a lot of people live watching us, so it's always a lot of fun, and there's a lot of wisdom, humor, suggestions, like all kinds of cool stuff in the live chat. So that's wonderful. And then, of course, the people who listen afterwards, we really appreciate. We appreciate you as well. Karen, Jason, I appreciate you guys. I'm so glad to have been, part of the Knights of the Storm. I'm very grateful for that. Denver, always nice to see you, chat with you. Nice to see you in other live chats when we encounter each other. So thank you so much. And yeah, I know Karen shouted this out, but please consider tuning in to the Streamathon on Monday the 19th. We'll have more details about that coming out. And I think that's it for me. Over to you.
Right on. So Denver, I want to thank you, just for everyone out there listening or watching, viewing, whatever. I got a hold of Denver. I said, hey man, have you heard about this Speed Act? He's like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, go. And he brings me 3 hours worth of content, which we could probably stretch out to 5 hours if we really wanted to. So I do want to thank Denver for coming on and being the guest host. I know I kind of hosted a little bit, but this is Denver's show. He put all the information together. So I do thank you so much for bringing great content and information to people, critical information as we accelerate snowball downhill. We're moving faster and faster. People don't realize they're contributing to it. Even if they're fighting it, they don't realize, they're contributing. So, being aware of what you do could make a difference in how the demand for this product, right? So Denver, your final thoughts, and then Karen, when he's done, you close us out. I got the off buttons ready. Okay.
Yeah. My final thoughts will just be on keeping your shoulders high and keeping your chin up and finding solidarity with the people around you and within the community in which you live, and do what you can to, you know, as difficult it can be, to try to not be overly I can't think of the right word. Pompousness is not attractive. So when people are like totally wrong and need to be convinced, like the opposite of just being kind of like joking, harmless jokes, smile, humor, you know, pompousness, no. Like, it would just be my take on it. But yeah, there's always a lot of good stuff. I'm just coming on and talking about stuff I looked into at length, hearing from great shows like this, and people like Ryan Christian, and people like Brad Binkley, and people like Kevin Sandbloom and Steve over at AM Wake Up, you know. So I'm just trying to add resonance to the great work all you guys do.
Okay. My dad always said, kill them with kindness. And I saw a little sign in our favorite diner that says, this killing of them with kindness is taking a lot longer than I thought. That was pretty clever.
That's good.
But
That's good.
yeah, I do try to kill them with kindness. It's a lot more effective than a hammer over the head. Okay, yeah. We're having our Southern goodbye and our Minnesota farewell, apparently. So I'm just going to go right into this and say, keep your sword sharp, your armor tight, and shine your lights.